Welcome to another episode of Exploring the Vintage NFT Space podcast with Zero G. Today, I'm excited to have with me Davesta, one of the Rare Pepe OG artists and prolific artist and still continuing in the counterparty and other scenes. So thanks for joining me today.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Zero G.
Yeah, really excited to chat with you today. I know you've got you've got your OG Pepe and you've got some other cool assets, and you've got some really cool tie-ins to the fake community too that I think is going to be really fun to talk about.
Yeah, well, I love what they're doing, and I have some funny stories about what a fake rare used to be very a bad thing. But now it's a really cool thing, and it's amazing that Skrilla and the whole team over there really jumped on that. And
Yeah, I mean, hats
go.
off for Skrilla and the gang for like not just kickstarting it, but to keep it going. And I mean, that's a volunteer effort too. So anyway, I think they've done a great job. But before we jump into that, why don't we step back and why don't you tell me kind of your story about how you learned about crypto and what gave you enough motivation to actually make that first leap and make your first purchase?
Oh man, the simple answer would be necessity. And I think a lot of people are going to realize that in the future. But I was a college student, and I played a lot of online poker. I really loved it. I loved the math. I love the game, and online's a different game than real life for sure. And but basically, there was this U.S. federal law, and you couldn't play on the European sites anymore, and you couldn't. Certain sites got shut down. I don't, American users basically got thrown off of the main user base of online poker,
I remember
and
that.
yeah, it sucked for young gambling kid, but I'd really just loved the game. But I was really focused on my stats and making sure that I was getting making profits. It was like $50 a month or something like that. Like I'm up. But one day I couldn't put my money in. I couldn't connect my bank account, and they're like, nope, this is illegal now. You can't do this. So they were like, oh, we accept Bitcoin. And I was like, oh, I've heard about that. I guess it's like the Silk Road thing, whatever, magic internet money on Reddit or whatever. But I found out about it. I think it was Kraken or something like that back in the day, and I filled up, and it all happened in like 30 minutes. It was just like bam, 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 done, and I can play poker. And I was like, wow, this is great. I don't need to ask for permission for a government or anybody to do what I want to do. And it seems so harmless to want to play online poker. And, that's how I first got into it. And I remember it's sad to say, but I came out with my biggest purse ever was $1,300. It was a huge tournament. Played for like 10 hours, maybe more. And it was 0.4 Bitcoin. It was the most I'd ever owned, and I sold it instantly. And it was just like, but I saw the utility case of it, and I was like, wow, thank you so much that this technology exists. And people might see this nefarious, but nowadays I see a lot of issues of necessity of people just wanting to send money across. I don't know if you've ever tried to send money across to another country. It's just annoying and impossible. And the banks will be like, "Oh, we'll take this pool and go trade it," or they do. It's just annoying. It's just like
Yeah, I mean, you'll get charged a fee to send it. The person receiving it will get charged a fee. They'll get a fee to change it over between the currencies. I mean, it's such a scam. Like in a lot of those countries too, they have like the official rate, which is really a scam, and then you've got like the real black market rate. So they essentially, if they go through a legit bank, they essentially get scammed by getting converted at the quote unquote official rate, which is way different than what they could get in the black market. So, but yeah, I mean, I remember. Go ahead.
Wait, I was just going to go on top of that. And then the banks don't have, some countries are like, well, we only need to have 10% of the reserve. And it just gets way more hairy down there, just down that road.
Yeah, I mean, now it's 0% reserve in the West, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's the play.
It is, yeah.
Unlock the token, unlock USD token.
Yeah. What's funny is what is so silly about that whole thing though is that because I remember I was playing online poker a little bit. I was never any good, right? It's like kind of like you guys, just having fun. I like the game. But I kind of learned through through reading online that essentially, like, what it was is really just lobbyists from these different jurisdictions where they had the in real life casinos. They were just paying lobbyists to essentially write the laws to outlaw it, just so they could protect their, you know, protect their casino games. It's like, I mean, it just exposes the corruption on, on the political scale. Like, again, we need censorship resistant currency, because, like, I'm sure you remember, like, some of those, like, until there was Bitcoin accepted on those sites, you had to like use all these weird payment processors and stuff. Once they did that, like,
Oh, you're gonna have to rip up your credit card 5 days after using it back in the day. You're
yeah,
gonna have to
exactly. It's just
cut that
like,
shit up. Yeah, that's how it
you know,
was.
I mean, and I think beyond, like, kind of like the niceties, we have like two really prescient examples of it being fundamental for human rights. We have, WikiLeaks with Julian Assange, where all of his payment rails, all of them were cut off except for crypto, because they couldn't cut it off. And also the trucker protests in Canada, a year or two ago. I thought those were, especially the trucker protests, really kind of exposed that even in Western quote unquote democracies, if the state feels that it's threatened, the veil will come off, right?
Oh
So
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, and like I said, that's kind of what I mentioned. I think eventually every person eventually is gonna realize the necessity and go, oh wait, I'm not allowed to do this anymore. I'm not allowed to, sell a bike to my neighbor for, $20 of cash. Or I know that sounds ridiculous, but maybe
no,
one
it's
day
not.
maybe it won't be ridiculous one
It's
day. You
not
never know.
ridiculous. I read that in Europe. What was it, like $1,000 is like the max that you're supposed to be able to legally transact in cash, like, something crazy like that, like 500 or 1,000 or maybe 2,000 euro, like, is the max you're supposed to be able to transact in cash. Everything else is supposed to be electronic so they can trace it. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, the necessity eventually will show up for everybody. I mean, but I don't know when, I don't know how, and hopefully it won't be bloody or and I'm saying that in a purely symbolic sense of just, I wanted to play poker, but somebody might not be able to get their paycheck soon, you never know. So
Yeah, I mean, they essentially, they tried to ruin people's careers and livelihoods in those trucker protests too. I mean, um, yeah, it gets real. So anyway, yeah, it's funny. We had the same experience with the poker stuff. And another like IRL example that is still relevant today too, that's not quite as sensitive, is, in a lot of, at least in the US, they have this weird medical cartel where essentially, if you're going to buy prescription drugs like the legal way, they essentially have a monopoly cartel that's enforced by the government, where they essentially charge a higher price than anywhere else in the world for the same thing, whereas you can, like, buy on the internet from Canada or India or something for like a fifth or a tenth or the 20th of the price. So, but in a similar sense, that you can't, a lot of those places, you can't use credit cards, or you wouldn't want to use credit cards, because they have to use shady payment processors. So most of those use crypto in order to get around those payment rails too.
yeah, another example, obviously in the information world with Julian Assange, which just
Mhm.
another point of that is Julian Assange and WikiLeaks started accepting Bitcoin at $1. When the price hit $1, I think they tweeted or something. It was I forgot, they were a lot more active, on the social medias in the day when it was
Yeah.
allowed when they were allowed to be, and
Right.
and yeah, but I remember he was like, well, I mean, Julian tweeted like, it's $1. I guess it's the same thing as the US dollar, for 21 million coins. And wow, that investment they made for people donating even just $5 at that time is insane now. And I definitely, someone should look up their public address and maybe send them a Pepe or two, and
Yeah.
just for historical purposes. Um, but anyway, I don't know, just getting with this idea of payment processors and all this. I mean, this is kind of what eventually led me to Counterparty, and eventually led me into it's kind of weird, the story, but I mean, so I knew about Bitcoin, I knew about kind of trading it. I saw Ethereum. It's funny, I traded on the exchange cex.io. I tell
Yeah.
people about it. Oh, it's sex.io, bro.
Yeah.
No, no, but
Yeah.
but that's what I traded on. I remember seeing Ethereum like $5. That's was like the lowest. I was like right when I got into it. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know about trading at all. I didn't know what that world was. I'd never touched a stock in my life. But I landed up into the Poloniex troll box. I know this has been
Yeah.
mentioned
Yeah.
on your interviews before, but it's a very, very magical, important, terrible place. Or it was. And Robness, I think, mentioned it. Skrilla mentioned it. I mean, a lot of people are. I kind of saw moon and dump and all these new words that I'd never knew, bullish and bearish and in this degenerate community that I thought was so funny. I would just sit there and watch Poloniex sometimes because they had traded XCP at the time on Poloniex. It was on Bittrex and a Poloniex, and I had was trading shit coins and Doge and random shit. A lot of stuff. You're just trying to make up. At that time it was like it was the altcoin season, right? Everything else is better than Bitcoin and but anyway, I remember being there and seeing stuff there and one day, this is kind of a side story, but I'll kind of all synced up at that time. One day I was on Reddit r/the Donald, which was the old
Yeah.
pro-Trump Reddit. It was very popular. The cost for advertising on that was extreme, almost as much as the main pages on Reddit, for how much traffic it was getting. And one guy just posted a Pepe, and people post Pepes there all the time. But one of them was like, "This is super rare," and then they put Rare Pepe wallet at the bottom. And I was like, "What the fuck is that?" And I remember going there and seeing, and just had thousands of questions. Like, what are these backed on? What is this? So many questions I had for counterparty, and every single time they got answered, I was just more excited. I was like, "Wait, no way, really?" Like, and I don't know. I could ramble about it, but when I saw that, like, you could make your own asset, you could mint your own art to it, you could put whatever information you wanted to. It was stored on top of a transaction, so it's like still public. It's like etched in the stone, like you're writing it into the, well, what's that old stone that they used to translate? Not the Magna Carta. It was the uh
Oh yeah, I know
oh,
what you're talking about. The
you know
one
what I'm talking.
from Egypt. Yeah, the Rosetta Stone.
Rosetta Stone. It feels like that whenever I transact something. It's like, dude, there's gonna be people in the future, historians that are gonna look through this, like, or AI, or like or systems that are gonna find a lot of these things that we put into the public. And I think that's really beautiful and really cool. And the fact that there's oh my God, a decade now that people have been doing this almost, like, and I just was like, oh my gosh, I can see how much their supply is. They can't print anymore. It's divisible or it's not divisible. It's back, like everything was so public. And anyway, that's when I saw that. That's what eventually led me to wanting to mint, wanting to, like, Rare Pepe was like still on. It was series 30 something, 3029 maybe when I got in. And the moment like when it all clicked, I was like, holy crap, these are super rare. These are super cool. I want one. I want one now. And I went and bought Pepe Cash. I went and bought my XCP. I sent it to my, like, luckily I knew how to do all that stuff. It'd be hard to somebody to get into counterparty that doesn't know how to just, doesn't know what a Bitcoin wallet is or how to send or stuff. But I'm rambling at you. But man, I'll just, that transition period of seeing that was just like, I wanted to learn everything about crypto at that point. I became a complete nerd about it. Like, I was all in.
It's funny, like you mentioned like Poloniex and some of those early exchanges. I remember like I saw the troll box. I didn't really interact with, but I was always kind of blown away at just like you said how absolutely degenerate it was. But like I remember like Poloniex was really special too because there were very few exchanges that had a lot of like at least that I was aware of that at the time had some of the best altcoins, like, and it's funny like looking back on, I mean, you know, we all make mistakes, right? I ended up being a terrible trader, but
Well, so
and
did
my
I.
other big regret too is I remember seeing like the pre-sale for ETH and I faded it, man. So but like all these, like looking at that list of all the coins that I had gotten over the years, like from like all, back then there was so much innovation on all these different like technical stuff from like I remember like all these different consensus mechanisms, like the proof of space with like burst and all those other, crazy coins. And I don't know, it was just a really, like you said, it was a really magical and exciting time to nerd out on the tech. And I could totally, I wasn't around during that early counterparty scene, but whenever I found out about it, I kind of went down the rabbit hole too. So I mean, and I was blown away by how easy it is to um, create assets and issue them. I don't know. It's still to this day is a really elegant system. I think it's still criminally underrated for what it is.
I agree. I mean, when we can get into the fakes kind of stuff here, but when I got into the Rare Pepe chat, it
Yeah.
was kind of, I kind of felt like Poloniex. People were degenning, people were getting mad at each other, and it was fun. Like, we were playing around. People would like go into the Rare Pepe chat, have a discussion, and somebody that was just kind of a lurker would just full make a meme out of what happened in the chat, or they would, and I was like, that's funny as hell. Like, this is, they don't care. And this is Rob. I remember Rob. It was, he went by
Yeah.
Ground Beef Taxi at the time, and that was his main. That was his series one card, and he was all caps in the chat, and like, man, so many laughs, so many laughs. But at the time, it was like, so on Counterparty, there was there was a lot of scams happening too. So all over the altcoin, people, this pump and dumps have been around since then. People, BitConnect was that,
Yeah.
remember Beat Connect?
God,
Oh my
that was the
God.
best, man. I mean,
Carlos
I
Mon
remember, I remember watching that thing blow up, and like, I was trying to back then. I was trying to keep up with all the different major altcoins, to like try to figure out what was going on, and that was like right as that 2017 period went like blew up where you couldn't keep up with them anymore. But I remember looking into BitConnect and I was like, well, this is an obvious scam. Like, and that was when it was like I don't know, like 30 or 40 or $50 or something. And I was like, there's no way this is going to keep going. And, that thing went up to over, I think 200 or $250 before it imploded. But
It
I
was like,
mean,
oh,
that,
yeah, he was like, go to the website. It was like, this is how Bernie Madoff did it. So we tried it on cryptocurrency. Yeah.
I mean, he gave us like probably one of my favorite memes is that Carlos Matos, BitConnect, scream, at that conference. And the other one too that I think is one of my favorite memes from the crypto era, captured in Rare Pepes. I mean, there's a ton of them, but as Indelible made that what was that? The um spacing. The one with the laser eyes, the
G1
G1,
Wu?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
Wu.
pronounced it wrong. I'm gonna get flack for that, but but yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's
one.
yeah,
Yep.
definitely good times. But
Putting
so
mom. Yeah, go ahead.
so you once you got kind of like got immersed in that scene, so how long did it take you to get the jonesing to actually create your own card and kind of jump in and participate?
Well, I mean, I was already collecting, so I already knew that I think I picked up a frog bus from Easy B. That was a
Mhm.
beautiful card, and I love that card. And then I started to notice there was some arbitrage in the XCP to Pepe cash. There was some
Mhm.
arbitrage from, selling certain cards, and we didn't have dispensers at that time, so it was all Pep. Everyone sold everything in Pepe cash, and XCP was kind of a side thing. And I didn't really seem as important as it is now, for sales history. But I remember I grabbed some Pepe Cash, I grabbed some XCP, and then realized like, oh, I should try to submit one. And at the time in my normal working day life, I was working really low income at kind of like a Walgreens type, photo thing, but we also did Photoshop for people. Like, they came in with a ripped photo or whatever.
Oh, cool.
And
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and so I was just getting into Photoshop. I think my first meme was a Doge Assange meme. It was like much wow, much leaks. It was like a
Yeah.
Assange with that took me like 3 hours. It was like, easy copy paste. But I remember it was so hard for me. And so I wasn't very good. I could tell that everyone was really good artists. And at that time, I mean, how it felt, I didn't know anybody. It didn't feel like nowadays, I mean, Easy B is just a lot of these people are really looked up to. Robness, super famous now. I mean, just
Yeah.
like it's super well known. I mean, and all these people that I didn't know anything, you know, Da Vinci, like, right. I would see these people mint. I'm like, who the hell are these guys? Right. You know, it didn't, you know, what are the, you know, they're not on the TV, so they're, you know, no one knows about them or whatever. They're not on my feed or whatever, but that's how it felt for me as just a new user. But I wasn't that much of an artist, and I thought, okay, well, I guess I'll try to Photoshop something, and I tried and it didn't really work out. And I was in the chat and I saw this meme that Skrilla had posted, and it was I think I remember. I'm gonna try to get this right, but I always kind of either gloss over or miss things. And but it basically Skrilla had gotten like rejected for some of his cards or whatever. For I don't know what was going on. Everyone was mad at something for at that time. He posted the Freedom Keck like art, which was the like 50s, you know, the you know, the fathers of the world, like the World War flying, and then he put the cards as the planes instead. And I saw that and I was like, oh, I could probably start from that. And I messaged Skrilla. I didn't even know who he was. And I was like, hey, can I use that art you posted? Because if you posted it in the chat, you obviously didn't, it's not going to get accepted because
Yeah.
it's already posted. And so I was like, can I use that? And I'm gonna like work from it and make it look all super sick. And maybe, and he's like, yeah, go for it, whatever, man. Like I just kind of flipped that. I literally copied and pasted cards on top of an old, you know, 50s ad. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And so I got it. I like changed it into this yellow. I added like keck. I added like these weird things, and then I minted it wrong. I like did the CoinDaddy link on I like uploaded the wrong, like the original file instead of my changed file. And then when I sent it to like the system that on Rare Pepe wallet, I put it as a TIFF because that was what I was using in my at the photo stuff. I was using TIFFs because it's super easy to work with. And so I like, dude, I don't want to talk about, I've read through it. I was so mad at Mike. Mike like denied that entry. He's like, first off, Skrilla posted that art. You barely did anything to it. Like, second off, you gave me a TIFF. Third off, you didn't even mint it right. Like, you know, it's not even the right picture on Coin. It's not even, you know, everything was wrong. Then I go off about Mike about how much he's, you know, the worst thing. You know, I was so mad, man. I was so, because I wanted to get in Rare Pepe so bad, you know, and I was, you know, at the time I'm glad Mike denied that, and I'm not glad about the things I said, but I'm glad he did, because it made me sit down and go, okay, I'm just going to make something completely original, really come to thoughts about it. And then I finally successfully I minted BreitBartPep after I watched a couple, it was like one of those binge nights where you stay up to like 4 a.m. right before the, you know, the big day tomorrow, and you can't go to sleep. But I watched a bunch of these documentaries on Andrew Breitbart, and I realized that I just saw a lot of that 1960s revolutionary spirit in him, and like the not caring, and that his spirit alone would make the difference. And the main thing I saw on some of these kind of documentaries was he would go up to protesters and just ask them a couple questions and like out them as being paid. And for me, that was like a really big new thing of like, wait, you can pay protesters to be mad at something and then go bring a camera. It's like obvious, you know, but like at that time I was like, whoa, that's weird. And I remember seeing his, this might seem edgy now, but it's kind of really a weird story in the history books for me, is when he pointed out the director of the NAACP when she gave out racist remarks against quote unquote white people or whatever, and he called it out, being this, you know, white man or whatever, and she got fired and took down as the president. And I remember being like, dude, this was like early 2000s, late, well, way before all the BLM stuff. And I'm like, wow, that he had balls to be like, are we going to be on, you know, philosophical, like whether or not he was right or wrong for doing so, he had some balls. And I was like, anyway, I looked into him more, and I was like, wait a minute, he was on Twitter. He talked about John Podesta long before WikiLeaks even leaked them. Like, what's the connection there? You know, the in the Breitbart Pep card, it's Prague guru John Podesta. He had tweeted that, and the progressive guru, you know, the guy that's really leading Hillary Clinton's campaign or whatever, also really into UFOs apparently. But I just found that remarkable that Breitbart kind of was 4 or 5 years ahead of what the next big media social push would be, and he could kind of pick that up. And I was like, wow, this guy's they killed this guy for sure. Like, I mean, he tweeted, "When are they gonna quote unquote kill me with a heart attack murder?" And then I looked it up. He dies from a heart attack, and then his coroner that is supposed to like see for yeah, any evidence of poison or something like that dies from poisoning, arsenic poisoning.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, I mean, it sounds like Breitbart was a martyr in a way, and I made the card around that, and I liked that series one degen style. You just kind of paint the face
Yeah.
green. He's the Pepe for who he is right now, and I didn't know it at the time, but James O'Keefe in the background would end up becoming just a huge prolific,
I didn't
um,
realize that's who's in the background. That's O'Keefe. That's amazing.
yeah, and he was that was this is a picture I'm pretty sure of when they worked. Breitbart basically called him after the Acorn scandal and was
Mhm.
like,
Oh
"Yo,
yeah, I remember that.
I really like your work," and I think it's funny that I kind of felt like the Breitbart on my little MacBook. He has a little MacBook in there or whatever, and I'm just kind of typing out my little meme, and I'm the Breitbart Pep because, and then James O'Keefe is giggling about it in the background, and it was I made 777 because it's a Jewish gematria for well, I guess Judeo-Christian, but for holy number infinitely. And so it was kind of
Mhm.
like a wow, you really had like a Holy Spirit in you. And then I burnt seven, so to as a sacrifice. And it was sent to the Pepe burn address. It wasn't we didn't have destroy back in those days. Um, so you just send it to the burn address.
Well, I just
And that
wanted to
was
call out like one thing I wasn't super familiar with Breitbart, but you know, I like the fact that he was calling out the paid protesters. I think that's super significant because in the United States and in politics and the what we would consider the mainstream or the corporate media, they had such a long run of a monopoly over access to coverage where essentially they refuse to cover anything real, right? To where those types of things like would go on for a long time, and like talking about how he ended up probably being murdered. I mean, like it took years and years, but now we have pretty concrete proof about how our intelligence agencies were behind the murders of a lot of the political leaders throughout um, you know the 20th century, like MLK and Malcolm X, and
oh yeah, Fred Hampton.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so many like they have the COINTELPRO, and if they can't discredit a true leader, they murder them, right? So JFK and yeah, Bobby, Kennedy. I mean, there's so many that were just murdered, right? So I don't know. I think exposing that just naked corruption of that's like the paid protesters. I guess the other reason why that really hit a nerve with me is they use that same garbage to overthrow other countries, those fake
Yeah.
protests. So anyway, that's really amazing he was calling that out in our own country. So
Yeah, I mean, and it was to see video. I mean, I don't know, I don't remember the exact documentary, but to see him go up and to derive information from three or four questions from somebody
yeah.
that probably got hired on Craigslist or whatever, and to see their faces when someone that kind of in-depth intelligent comes up to them, it was like, whoa, like I don't know. He walked through the fire like Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. Like it was crazy, and that's how I saw it. And that's what Breitbart. I like Breitbart Pep is really dear to me. I gave a couple away on Twitter and 50, I think, and I yeah, I love the political cards. I mean, you reference another one, Killary Pepe, one of my
Yeah. Yeah.
all-time
Oh man.
favorite cards.
Me too.
Can be obtained by the USD or the Department of Justice and the FBI, and um that one is great because they posted the bank the
Yeah,
money
the
she got from the
donations.
banks, yeah, from the
Mhm.
banks for having the open borders conference. Dude, do you know how long ago that open border conference was? Like, do you know how long ago Hillary Pepe was minted? Like, that was a big deal to kind of put that in stone. And for me, I think the fact that the Rare Pepes now are kind of seen as NFT like relics is I completely agree. It's like I think, but I think their example should be kept going on. Like you said, the
Yeah.
truckers. There's the G Money's card, Bitcoin for
Yeah.
Truckers card that got in, and that
That's
was that was
that's one of my
pretty.
favorite fakes for that reason. I was lucky enough to be able to get a copy of that. And to me, it's one of the most meaningful fakes that I own. And because for me, and I suspect with you too, like this whole crypto thing, like for me, it's way more about than money go. I mean, the number go up. I mean, this is really instrumental in allowing society to reform and revolutionize in a peaceful manner rather than the kind of the really dark path that essentially the powers that be want to try and take us down, right?
Yeah, I mean, what we say in the in another type of realm of work, we say ask for forgiveness, not permission. And in some circumstances, I think Rare Pepe did that, and still to this day, fakes do. And I don't know. I mean, I'm just to give you history at the time for like I was just going to bring it back to the kind of the assets and counterparty
Yeah.
is when I minted that Freedom Keck, right? Mike rejected it.
Mm-hmm.
That it was seen as a fake. I was actually
Yeah.
embarrassed to have a fake in my wallet. That's how embarrassed. No, you because at the time there was like a lot of these fake assets. Someone will go into the Rare Pepe chat and be like, "Oh, there's some asset. It's so sick," and somebody would get scammed for some sort of. I mean, at
Oh
the time it was
yeah.
probably $10 or
Yeah,
some
so
shit.
people would scam each other like by, they think it's an actual a legit rare and they actually be sold a fake rare and then essentially get scammed essentially, right?
Or I think somebody, and I think JDog has really gone out of his way to try to prevent stuff like this theoretically. And it's like someone would mint Bitcoin, and you'd have to buy the asset named Bitcoin on Counterparty or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, like basically it was so new. Everyone in there, like the developers of the Rare Pepe wallet, they just wanted to teach people how to use it because a lot of people were showing up that didn't know a lot of that stuff, and they still do, which is really cute and awesome, and I love it. But um, I just I can't express enough how like shameful it was for almost up to about 2 years ago to even post anything non-Rare Pepe in that chat. And you still can, it's still frowned upon, but it's a lot more lenient. So anyway, the I guess I can tie it in this way. Like you said before, with the necessity of using cryptocurrency, I remember there was this meme of the banks. It's like send $50 with Western Union cost $5. Send any amount on Bitcoin cost 10 cents or something like that, right? And I remember that was a big meme that I got into 2016. But the issue is that when I got into Rare Pepe, that moment, it was when all of the fees started going up. It was 2016, 2017, and it got impossible to use Rare Pepe. It was literally like at one point, I think it was like a $30-$40 fee in
Yeah.
Bitcoin just to send a 5 cent card at the time. And it was like, why would it went dead? Because it was unusable. And it like nobody was minting. I think you can literally see it on the X-Chain history. There was a time where like weeks where people didn't mint anything. There was you never see that now, but we called it the Pepe freeze, or at least I call it that. But
Yeah, I
that was an
remember that. I remember that dark period where, yeah, I remember like having to move some stuff around and just to send a normal Bitcoin transaction and not have to wait a week. Yeah, like you were saying, you were paying 40, $45. It's like it was brutal.
that's when I started watching Roger Ver and being like Bitcoin Cash or Dash, or got really into the low fee coins,
Hmm.
um and I followed Lightning SegWit. I followed a lot of the people disagreeing with it or agreeing with it, but that was a big freeze at the beginning for the counterparty community because they're using, it was before the SegWit addresses.
Hmm.
It was just kind of felt clunky at that time for it just didn't make sense to buy cards. Maybe now, if if some of these cards are worth a lot more, but at the time it didn't make sense at all. Some artists were never just distributing them, and it kind of, I can get why they kind of closed it down. It was just no one was doing it anymore, and the people that were active were, like I said, it was just kind of full of scammers. But no, everyone hated the stupid scammers trying to like just make a buck or two. But I mean, I'm going to play devil's advocate on that. The opposite of that is sometimes, there's people from. I remember meeting people in the Rare Pepe chat that I thought were scammers, 100%. There was this girl from Venezuela. She was the artist of the Pepe like and the minter of Pepe like and Pepe Android.
Mhm.
And I had spoken with her. She literally didn't have. I thought it was such a scam. She's like, I don't even have enough money for a Bitcoin transaction right now, but I'll trade you half the supply of Pepe Android and half the supply of Pepe like. And I was like, oh my god, yeah, of course. And I was like $4 to get her to the transaction or something like that. So I risked it, and she ended up super broken English. I don't even know why I did it, but I ended up trading those cards for a little bit of a profit at the time. But she lived in Venezuela, and $25 to her for half the supply was a big fucking deal, dude.
Yeah.
And I realized like, wow, I'm lucky to have our stable currency at that time in 2016, like the US dollar at that time, but she didn't. And it was crazy to meet people. There's the Japanese, whole the Zeif and the memory chain, and there's a worldwide. I was meeting people from across the world that their only interaction was just these weird screen names and weird memes we were posting. So
It's really kind of beautiful that that's kind of like the memes are the universal language in that sense.
yeah, 100%. And people were using Google Translate just to try to get OTC trades happening. And
I mean, I had heard other stories too about there were even I think some people from Africa that were contributing and like you said, and I know there are some people from India too, where you know while again, like these cards were trading for nothing back then, that was still enough to make a difference in these people's lives. And even today, like you can, like there's essentially that arbitrage where some of these countries, like you can, people are will do freelance work for crypto or whatever online, and you know, you send them $100 in crypto, and for us, I mean, yeah, it's $100 for them, like you said, that could be like a month or 2 months or 3 months worth of food for the and rent for the family.
we're super privileged. Even when I was working at that, at the low income job, I was still super privileged to have a currency that was somewhat stable. And it's not that much anymore. I mean, look at what happened.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the time, yeah, it can be way worse. It can be way worse. And it was crazy to meet people that had gone through that, or yeah. I mean, and just censorship too, like with the Chinese Pepe, make artists with G Pepe and with the
Mhm.
Pepe dictators, Mao
Mhm.
and their sometimes Rare Pepe is like an extension for them to be able to speak freely, on and that that's the beauty of the meme itself of the frog, but anyway, I guess I'll move on from that. It's like there was a Pepe freeze for so long because of the fees and stuff, and it wasn't until was it 2020 or 2021-ish, I guess, that people started to look back, started to what everyone thought, Ethereum did the first on this and that, and then you had the White Rabbit 1111, and all these NFT historians out here. There's so many. I just usually reference White Rabbit because I liked the way he presented it, and just to people started coming back into it, and I it started minting more again, and I just want to connect it with the fakes, rare things, and Freedom Kek, with which I had issued. Uh, I remember going to the chat and looking in my wallet and seeing like, oh, I had these Freedom Keks and people were selling Pepes. Dude, I was an idiot. I sold like some really rare cards for cheap because compared to the 2017 prices, it was insane already. Cards that were going
Yeah.
for like $5-6 before are now $250. Cards that were going for 100 are now thousands, and you were like, just like sell, sell, sell. A lot of the collectors back in the day, and I got really aped into it so I still have a lot of smaller issuance cards, but I was happy I picked up Frog Bus. I mean, that became huge, and but I remember that started happening. I came back into the chat a lot more, and I saw a Freedom Kek in my wallet, and I saw someone had bought it. Like I had given back in the day, I think I dropped half to Skrilla because I was like, "Thanks for letting me collab your card," and I gave him half the issuance and forgot about it, and or half the supply, and and it started selling, and then it started selling as like $5, $20, $100. $500. And I was like, why are people buying this Freedom Kek? I was freaking out. I was like, I felt like a scammer, bro. I felt like I was the guy that was selling the fake, like in the chat, bro. And but at the time, I'm like, you know what? Like, if they want my asset, they can have it. And so if you look at the early sales of Freedom Kek, it's just me not even knowing about Fake Rare Project at all. And it's just, I would distributed most of my supply through that. And I didn't know why. And then finally, I think dispensers had just came up at that time. And I never forget. I remember I wanted to ask in the Rare Pepe chat. I was like, "Oh my god, why is Freedom kept selling?" But I know that's a fake, so I don't want to look like a bad person. So I'm like, I can't say anything. I can't say anything. Just don't say anything. And then finally someone hooked me up and was like, "Yo, Skrilla's been trying to find you about Freedom Kek." And I was like, "Oh, really?" And finally I found Fake Rare's chat. I got in contact. We kind of had a laugh about it, and and finally I was like a couple of days after I found out about it, J-Dog posted in the Rare Pepe chat, somebody asked about where's Fake Rare, and J-Dog replied with the Fake Rare link, and there was like 20 responses from all the OGs of like, oh no, J-Dog did it. He like, and it was, I don't know how to describe to these people, like to any newbies, what that felt like, because when J-Dog posted the Fake Rare, it felt like this big new sun rising of like, J-Dog's down with these new projects. We're down to start creating. And then you started to see Dank Rare, Wojak Way, just then he moves on to the Doge Party, with Doge, oh my God, the Rare Doge Directory, and that turns into a whole thing. And at that moment in 2020 and 2021, that was just this big, oh man, big wave of just like, felt like a huge, just amazing wave that Hunter S. Thompson might describe about the about the 1960s. But
Yeah.
that was the story of Freedom Kek, and it became, I didn't know it was Series 0 Card 1 until way later. And but and I'm kind of glad I minted Skrilla's work and not mine. One, because it got popped off and it was cool, and I didn't, but at the same time, like, I'm really glad that is seen, like rejects are seen now as like really cool collector's items. Like I've talked about it in the chat, the Silk Road Pepe, the mysterious aesthetic one.
Yeah.
I brought that up, and I love the idea of the fake torch holder bringing Series 0 cards back and passing around to OGs, and it's just the way he kind of organize the submission process, and commons are still accepting, and any artist can come in and do exactly what I did when I came in 2016. That's what we need. This is like exactly what the community needs. But anyway, that's the story of like fakes. I mean, like, that's how like really off they were, off limits, and they were not seen as anything cool, and now they're super cool. So which is
That's
awesome.
that's awesome. I mean, and that's got to feel good, and kind of, I'm assuming a little bit strange, but your card is being like you said, this Series 0 Card 1 is, that's really where it all begins, really, for Fake Rares. I have to imagine that, you know I already think that Fake Rares is an amazing project, and I mean, again, like they had innovation too by having like the fake ASFs, and actually, but still curating it to keep out the garbage. And I think it turned into like what could have been like kind of janky, and if they didn't up the quality. I think it turned into an amazing project. And I mean, I think your card can end up being the equivalent of like the Naka for the rares, which has got to feel good.
Well, just to clarify, the Freedom Kek art is 100% Skrilla's. I remember back in the day, he asked me, he's like, "Can I put my
Mhm.
name on that card?" I'm like, "Yeah, you designed it. I made that weird, I didn't know anything about
Isn't
Photoshop." But the
so
one
is it
that's mine, the original one that's mine, that was supposed to be the one I minted, is free Dumb
oh,
DUMB
okay.
Kek, and
Okay.
that's the one I was supposed to mint. And I remember I was in the Fake Rare chat, and I don't know, we were just kind of me and Skrilla were riffing about the story, and I described that, and Skrilla just goes, "You should mint the original one for commons." And I didn't have a commons yet at that time, and I was like, "Yeah, fuck it, why not?" So I minted it. I found the old file. I dug through just so much. I actually went through, like, I had to go get a hard drive out of my old computer, and I found the file. I found the file. I was like, "Holy crap, it's still there." And and so I minted that, and that one I just kind of been giving away, and it's just there for history for me, and it kind of has I guess it has some worth for people, and that's really cool to me because that was it was supposed to be my original mint, but that's Skrilla's card, so
Okay, that
it's
makes
definitely
sense.
it's his art. It just happened to be that I minted it under a very just dumb circumstance, and like I said at the time when it happened, it was just literally water under the bridge. I messed up. It means nothing, and now it's blossomed into this just beautiful thing, which is cool to be a part of.
Yeah, it is super cool. I mean, hey, you were the one that minted it, so that counts for something too.
I just right place, right time, and I don't know, just having fun. Yeah, I
I mean,
I will.
which
Yeah,
again, kind of in the same like kind of like how Mike when he created the first three cards, he wasn't doing it to get rich or anything too. So I think kind of like that innocent vibe of that card too probably plays into the success in starting up kick starting that whole fakes movement.
yeah. I have so much respect for Mike now. I he's I haven't he's a giddy guy, and I like how he pops into chat every now and then, and still keeps it degen and fun, and that's why I came in. I don't know, a lot of people, the newbies, come into the Rare Pepe chat. I remember I was talking to Pangolin during the
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
highest, some of the highest. I traded a couple times with him. He's a super cool guy. He's really nice. I
Yeah,
don't
he
know if
is.
I actually don't even know if I just know him by Pangolin, and
Same. I don't know who he is in real life, but he sold me um one of my favorite cards I own is the I think one of the greats of the OGs is Futures Pepe. I bought from him. So
yeah, he just basically he said, I think it was him, there might be other people, but they just see that chat as kind of like, oh, I don't really want to touch it. It's kind of like this old papyrus that I don't want to mess with. It's very ancient. And for me, I'm like, come on, man, it's DJ. Like, let's have fun. Like this, that's why I came into the chat. I like that people were speaking their mind and making, Trump rare, build the wall or whatever, and
yeah,
not feeling bad for it. Like, just like there's nothing wrong with the Trump rare
just
card.
memeing.
It's
Yeah.
literally just memeing Ivanka. Like, that's it,
Yeah.
Ivanka. It's like, that's funny, bro. Like, he's got a little smirk, he's got the brick wall behind him. Like, have some fun with it. Even like the debate Pepe, Hillary Pepe too. Having fun with I don't know. A lot of people saw the whole. You can get. I think everybody, if they know about Pepe, they know about that whole history. You can look up documentaries about it and kind of get it. But on the
Yeah, yeah,
counterparty
for sure.
side, we were just having fun. What I was gonna get to the oh I'll touch on this because in the early days of Fake Rare, when it just started, like you said, because
Mhm,
they've just buffed it out. They have Pepe. What the fuck now, or
mhm.
Pepe.wtf. There's so many tools. Fake Rare looks really nice. Submission process super clean, super easy. Compared to the old processes of it, it just went haywire of the old Rare Pepe processes. But so I submitted a Fake Rare before Commons existed, and I saw people were doing fakes of like the OG, Series 1 cards, or they do like the
Yeah.
fake of the Dark Pill Pepe and all that. And so I was like, oh, I want to do a fake of Freedom Keck because I felt like I had not minted Freedom Keck at this time. And I was like, I'll do a fake of that. And it's actually still to this day one of my favorite collage pieces I've ever done. But Fake Freedom, I submitted that to Fake Rares. I forgot who was the torch holder at the time. I didn't really know, but they were like, no, this is not, we don't want this in our directory. And it was kind of like around the big time of the whole vaccine and the COVID
Yeah.
and the voting and the 2020 election, all that. And that's what that card's about. And it just got rejected. And I was so pissed off, bro. I was just as pissed as I was at Mike. I think it was he's super chill. I think it's like oh, who's the guy that runs submissions? It starts with a J. I'm blanking on it right now, but I didn't go off
I
on
think it
him.
was probably Jamie at the beginning, right?
Yes, that's correct. I think it was him. And he goes, "Oh, just go submit to Danks," like on the email. And I'm like, I was so mad. Like, oh, you want me to go to submit to Danks? Like, I want to be a part of Fake, bro. And anyway, so I went and submitted to Danks, and it actually just did well. It was it's I actually have a high price on that card because I really do enjoy that card personally, and I don't know, I coveted it a lot. But fake freedom is just, there's so many references in there. There's the signs being put up in I think it's Pennsylvania. There's in the upper left, there's the ballots being pulled out from the security cameras in Georgia. There's
Oh, that's awesome.
there's Kyle Rittenhouse's ear in one part. It's just kind of a huge collage of political events that I wanted to just show as, like, Freedom Cake was the old 1950s of, like, your dad goes out and flies planes to protect our American freedom. And, after 2020, I was like, nah, like, this is fake. That's all fake. Like, fake,
Yeah.
fake freedom. Let me show you what it's like, instead of like, you're free to do it, it's like, no, be safe. Like, and there's the COVID jab on the guy's arm, and I personally, I took it personally that maybe maybe the torch holder person at the time didn't like that and didn't think that as is good to show or something. And I was like, fuck you, dude. Like, anyway, but I like that card, and I'm glad it was in Danks. But that is also another story. If I got rejected for messing up in rares, and then I got rejected for that in fake rare. But I'm not as mad, because I like the way the system works. I like the torch holder makes the decisions. I like and it's fine. I wasn't as mad, like, it
You
didn't,
know,
simmer down.
and another thing too is like I intended to submit to Danks too, and because I thought it's a cool project, and um but it turns out that I don't know what the status of that project is going forward now, since Boost has kind of disappeared for a couple months. So I mean, it might not be possible to get into Danks anymore. So
That would be crazy if that's the way it went down.
right, I know.
That would be, I have, they're I think Skrilla mentioned it once, because they didn't want because like I said, coming off of that whole wave of the fakes being bad, there was the fake rare, then they were competing with the Danks. But I think Skrilla described it way better at one point. Is like, they're like different sororities, they're all and at the same school, and there's a
It's
respect between
mostly the
both of
same
them.
people too in all groups,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, that's true. And Rocco's from Rocco Boosts, all those cats in there. I like that. They're a different type of DJ chat. I'm part of all of them. It's fun to kind of go in there. And I submitted the next card I did on Danks as well. It was Pepe Swim Cap. People were messing with the Rue Dolly AI,
Mhm.
and I spent a whole weekend. It was me and my roommate. It was no joke. I like downloaded. I got a couple programs. I even ran one, and like, coded my own things. I must have AI'd like 1,000+ images, from a couple of these things, and one of those popped up very similar to looking like the Pepe Swim Cap. And the swim cap was all perfect, and the face was kind of cool, and the background was this stark, just like clean blue and a clean green. And I was like, well, wow, I'm going to work from this. And I just kind of fixed it up a little bit with Photoshop, and kind of added, it was only a square, so I had to kind of fill in a little bit more of it. But I did kind of touched on AI. I was also really embarrassed about touching with AI. I felt like that was a
Oh,
scammy
really?
thing to do. I thought, okay, like all of this, but like a lot of the new stuff, it felt like, oh, it's not the right way to do it. It's not the way we always did it, And now I see people making, oh my God, on the OpenSea and all that. I'm like, that's AI. Like, I can tell. And they're just raking it in. And I'm like, well, Pepper Swim Cap, $10.
I
Can we
mean,
get it?
it's funny. I'll have to pick one of those up sometime. So I kind of got into I kind of like started learning about the AI artwork. I don't know, it's been a year or two ago. I remember running across um Deep Black was the first one that I was familiar with. Which was an Ethereum project for AI artwork. But then I ended up finding some earlier collections, and like, of course, there's the those first super rares, which are the Lost Rise, which are AI artwork. But it's like the AI stuff is I think it's really fascinating. Like anything we had that explosion of AI artwork, like what was it like? Now it's been like 8 months ago or something, where it went from being like kind of janky and weird and like cool to oh my God, this is like almost photorealistic, to where it's, you know, I don't know, it's made such a crazy progression. I think those earlier AI type artworks are going to be like collectible just for kind of like the slight jank and the aesthetic that they had. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, they were jank because they would go through those, like I think Rudolly was Russian, so it would go through
Uh-huh.
these like Russian search
Uh-huh.
bases or their Google or whatever,
Hmm.
and so you'd come up with really weird images sometimes of stuff
Yeah.
that didn't seem right for just because it's on a different side of the world, different architecture or stuff like that. So
Oh, I was going to say too that, the other thing I've seen is not just artists using AI and then like spitting it out and minting it on OpenSea or whatever, but I've seen people where they'll literally like just crop an existing like another artist's image. They'll either take the other like image that either hasn't been minted on any platform yet that they've just stolen, or they'll just like crop it, and or they'll just like add like a couple tiny edits and just mint it as their own. And people have made a ton of money just being complete bastards out there, you know?
and that's why I was super like, oh, I'm a degen. I AI this. I minted an AI. I mean, I feel like I did some Photoshop. I did add some color. It's not like I just kind of mint. I've seen people do that, and for a while on Counterparty, I saw people like, I'm gonna mint 100 AI pieces or 1,000 and mint them all. I'm like, man, you're wasting mint money right there. No one's gonna. I don't know. And some of them, I don't get that. I don't know. Art for art's sake on that is there's something fun about being a conscious living being and then seeing that a quote unquote piece is finished. There's AI. It's going to take a long time for AI to have that ethereal experience, I think. um
Yeah, yeah, for
um
sure.
but it looks beautiful, and I think video games are really going to improve in the future. I think that it's going
Yeah.
to be really fun. It's going to be very entertaining to watch AI and its systems in the art world and VR and augmented all that.
Yeah, I
um
mean, like, speaking of the applications of the AI, I think two things that I'm excited for. One, we've already seen is the NVIDIA has launched like this. That there's already been people that were using these AI upscalers for old games where they could go back to these old school games and use AI upscalers to create higher resolution interpretations of the original art assets and textures because old games. But now, like NVIDIA has released this entire like tool set that will not just upscale the textures, it'll upscale the like create more sophisticated geometry. It can redo the lighting in ray tracing. I mean, I think that is really amazing because games are one of PC games, at least for me, are like those are one of, I guess it's just as cultural or relevant as some of these crypto assets too. And I think that's really cool. But the other thing is not just remastering old things. I think one of the most exciting things I see happening, I've seen some people like send like talk about examples on Twitter, is where like these AI tools are going to allow like individuals or even like teams, like super small teams, like 2 or 3 people, to be able to create games and assets so much faster to where like it's going to reduce that like what we'd seen in the last 20 years is a amazing progression in the cost to produce like what you would consider the normal, like quote unquote normal, like 20 to 40 hour
Oh
single
my
player
God.
game.
Yeah, pulling everything from that Unreal Engine and having
Mm-hmm.
to then put it all in. Yeah, oh my God, that would take you months alone, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And now they have these AI tools where it's kind of like the equivalent of Chat GPT in some aspects, where you can, like I saw this one tool where they were like you could just use essentially like use a like use your pointer and just kind of like draw an outline of what you wanted and tell it in like in this style, and it creates this cyberpunk cityscape like that's actually a 3D environment that your character can interact with. And but it's populated in 3 dimensions, like a little alleyway out of nowhere, where that would if you were to use a studio, that would take a that would take, I don't know, like a week or 2 weeks for an artist or two to crank out. I
Have
mean,
you
and we
have
have.
you played Half-Life Alex?
No, I haven't.
Oh my, okay. I'm sorry. When you're describing it,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about basically everything in that game.
I
But
guess
so
the final thing I would say too is the other thing that makes me super excited for the future of gaming is I saw this Quixel mega textures, which is a technology that integrates with Unreal Engine. They released this demo this last year, 90 days in Unreal Engine. This was right as Unreal Engine 5 was being released, but it was a set of scenes that individual artists had spent 90 days creating. So like let's say it was maybe what 10 scenes, but they like an individual artist was able to go using these. Again, this is before this AI stuff blew up. These
Mhm.
guys were using Quixel mega textures, which is another, again, like really enhancer for productivity. They were able to create these photorealistic scenes that are able to be played in real time with ray traced lighting and everything. It's just, I don't know. We have like we could potentially be in for a golden age of gaming by having like super powerful game engines, but also like reducing the cost barrier, the crazy cost to produce high quality assets. And for I don't know, we could see a resurgence of indie games that will truly humble the triple A game, like the big studios, because they're too conservative and haven't been willing to innovate, right? I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know, it's exciting.
I was just watching a documentary on Valve, Gabe
Yeah.
Newell, and his theory on, because this is a topic I actually love to touch on when people are talking about historical or vintage NFTs,
Yeah.
is when you got to talk about Counter-Strike skins, RuneScape
Yeah.
skins,
Mhm.
you got to start talking about the gaming world and
Yeah.
like about Steam. I mean, Steam accepted Bitcoin for games back in those days before 2016 and 17. They actually stopped that same Pepe Freeze era that I
Yeah.
mentioned was the time they stopped accepting Bitcoin because it was not economically correct for them to be using it as a payment processor. And they were also, I mean, they have their own backstory of a bunch of lawsuits and this and that. But the theory of Steam to, start selling indie games, have people upload their own content for mods. I mean, people don't know this, but like Counter-Strike is just a mod of, but I think it was Half-Life 2, and
Yeah.
there's, Dota is a mod of was it StarCraft, I think it was. And so these were just community things built from Gary's mod. And there's these base, a lot of people use Unreal Engine now, but there's a whole aspect of digital artifacts and digital, ownership there too. There's also supply cap. There's certain assets that got released in certain ways that would be similar to the experimenting that people are doing on NFTs now. But obviously that's all centralized. It's on their servers. It's on the Steam. It's on Valve. You know what I'm saying? And so I
Yeah.
think in the future, I think I want to see a counterparty on Steam, like a Steam counterparty, where
Yeah.
then, where people can not only maybe invest in ownership of a game, but then receive dividends later if it makes a profit, or just a lot of ideas you can do to decentralize the way that people distribute, what is it called? Intellectual property,
It's
and, you know,
it's funny that in the US we have such a convoluted regulatory and like environment where essentially everything cool like that is prohibited by law, except to what are called quote unquote accredited investors, which basically equals rich people or bankers.
mhm.
I remember I used to trade forex back in the day, and back when the gold and silver pair versus the U.S. dollar was getting big, I used to trade that. And then once that was getting too popular, uh, the bankers just changed the rules and basically made it a accredited only like thing for U.S. citizens. So really rugged a bunch of people. But yeah, man, I agree. I've talked to several people where I thought the same thing years ago. I'm really surprised that we haven't seen any big game emerge yet. I mean, it will eventually happen, but it just seems like such a natural progression where you could see your ownership of these assets survive and go beyond the individual game studio, or because I know like Valve is big enough to where, I mean, at least for the next 20 years they're going to be around, right? I mean, even if they're not around in the same form, I still trust that my games are going to be available. I mean, hey, if they take a turn for worse, someone will buy them and still keep the like honor your ability to download your games, but your digital like the rights. I mean, there's another game that I thought was kind of like plays into that too. So Counter-Strike is the big daddy, right? But then you also have another like game slash scam, which is like Star Citizen. There,
Oh my God.
yeah, you know, they're trying to do the same thing where essentially they're selling digital property, but it's not on a secure public ledger to where essentially, you know, they're selling these like quote unquote ships that are quote unquote limited, but it's all basically in, I don't know, their database or an Excel file that, you know, you don't really know how many of those exist. And I don't know.
It's
I'm really surprised we haven't seen at least one big company make a blockbuster that takes advantage of a public blockchain.
blockchain 100%, dude. It's I don't get it. So and the thing is like the kids, the youth, even me, that is like, you know, I'm about to turn to the dirty 30 soon. How a couple years from now,
Oh
and
man, you're making me feel
I'm
bad.
yeah. Well, I mean young, but my main point for bringing that up is that I've seen the video game world, all right, and when you this is why I love Counterparty. You can see if you've locked the asset. You can see that they can't print anymore. All right. You know, there's not going to be 10,000 more Charizards in the market, you know? And for certain games, we can tell when people aren't doing that or when they are. So for instance, Counter-Strike, I'm going to, you know, only do it for this season or only have it in these cases. There's only a limited number of cases or something like that. Whatever their, you know, the way that they do skins, or we've only dropped these stickers to pros in this tournament, so they're super sought after, you know, or a gun that a pro used to play with, a very
Oh,
specific skin
totally.
that, yeah, and
Mhm.
that is really, really cool. You know, and people, I think they're getting into it with like the named Nakamotos of this number,
Yeah.
trying to track the named Nakamotos, or even with
That's
ordinals, trying to track Satoshis, right?
that's
Like,
that's one thing where I thought that it would be like not just a slam dunk, but it would take this digital ownership to the next level is, you know, like in the Steam marketplace, like you can't tell if as far as like as I'm aware, they're like even within the skins, they're fungible within that tier, right? Like I can't buy a skin and basically prove that it was this pro, like he was using this skin in the like in the World Series where he won the championship like with this skin, right? Where if we move to if we move to you know like it doesn't have to be counterparty, it could be some sort of other
anything.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it could be any you know public blockchain where I could then prove like cryptographically that hey, not only do I have this like super cool op skin, this is the op skin that pro used in like not in just this game, but all like his this is his period of time he owned it. These are the games that he played that where he had it. Like this is my op skin now. Like
Oh, like where
mega thanks.
you're signing a transaction for every kill he got. You know, it's like boom, like you know, this kill was like long A on Inferno in 2024 or whatever it
I
was.
mean,
You
I
know,
mean,
like that'd be
but
cool. That'd be really
well,
cool.
totally. I mean, like think about like we're because like what we're still going through is this like digital revolution where people are transforming the idea of property, and you know, and a lot of people still haven't really caught up that like digital property is not just as real as like physical property, but can actually be better in a lot of respects, right? So like it's like in terms of nerd flex and online, like that is way cooler than having like I don't know, like a fancy car or a fancy gun in the sense, you know, or a fancy computer in the sense that I can, you know, I can if I'm super into Counter Strike, I can nerd flex and be like, you know, have this in my profile and be like, and prove it crypto. Hey, I'm the owner of you know the coolest skin on you know that was used by X pros, right? In my virtual gallery of previously pro owned skins or something, you know.
I mean, to move on to the next card I minted,
Yeah.
that's
Sorry.
compliment. No, no, I mean this is tying in perfectly. This is actually exactly where I want to go because someone proved me wrong, but I'm the one who first referenced Counter Strike on Counterparty. All right, and it's on the Pepe Neil, and shout out to Rare Pepe Trader, used to be known as Rare Pepe News.
Yeah. Yeah.
Runs the WTH auction house. He's a very good OG friend. He's so active in the community, an awesome guy. But it turned me on to Neil Stevenson, the book Snow Crash, which is
Yeah.
basically exactly what you're talking about. I mean, the main character is this guy who lives in a storage container, right? And with just AC, that's it. And he puts on his VR. It's like a full Neuralinks type setup where he's a samurai slash, action, hero in this world. And he's like top level, hacker of this and that. And there's these political things and gangs and I mean that world that Neil Stevenson, like pictured, he even wrote a book called Cryptonomicon, which is about these like, you know, anarchist teenagers are like, we're going to make our own currency. But the book is, that one's a lot of history of World War
Hmm.
II and Turing, the what is it, the
The
Alan
Colossus.
Turing, yeah, and Alan Turing's kind of work on cryptography, basically,
Yeah.
at like the beginning of it. And um anyway, I just think just really that's what we're going to look to in the future. I mean, I saw this tweet a long time ago. Robness was like, I want to make like furniture skins for AR, like augmented reality, where you have just your little glasses or your contacts, like Minority Report or something like
Yeah.
similar, and boom, your room is just covered in your art, and it's just like you could be in a storage container, and being at the, making nothing, and now you're in this beautiful world, and like that's like, it just with all of your friends, and it's scary, but it's probably inevitable.
I mean, it's where like it's basically where I think a lot of the early crypto people come from a hard money or libertarian background where they like, they understand like the necessity of gold, silver, or kind of like a hard money in concept, right? Where
Hmm.
um
Meltdown for value. I mean, they even
yeah,
melted
yeah,
down. Yeah,
totally. Like,
yeah.
but where like one thing that where like some of the old school gold and silver bugs they totally don't get is that like in terms of being able to actually use in commerce, crypto is miles ahead. It's incomparable, right? And another thing is that in the event of and this applies not just to crypto itself, but I was trying to play into what you're talking about with these like this kind of like digital ownership of NFTs, and it applies just as much to Rare Pepes, but also to these metaverse style things. Is that you know I'm not bound to a specific location in terms of my ownership, and like I don't have to have a ton of space to have like one of the like I can own a Nakamoto and I can just memorize 12 or 24 words and fly anywhere in the world and walk through anywhere and no one can stop me, right? Like no one knows
Mhm.
that I have it, no one can prove that I have it, but I can go to any computer in the world and bam, I have that Nakamoto. I have that, like you said, I have the skin for like a virtual world or proving my authentication, like a
Those
you know,
stories. Yeah, no, I'm sorry to cut you off here, but it reminds me of those stories of the British like engineers and architects, and when they would go over on the ships to the New World, the New Americas, and they would
yeah,
literally walk around the factories and memorize the factory layouts
yeah,
and how
totally.
and it's
Yeah.
that's kind of similar. It's like that's their own understanding, and it was
Yeah, they
so
were making
primitive.
your brain wallet back then. I mean,
Yes,
like
exactly.
the history. Like it's funny that the U.S. and the West is trying to enforce this whole concept of IP property rights and corporate ownership and enforcement when essentially the entire industrial base of America was built literally on IP theft. I
Hmm.
mean,
Well,
it's
with
brilliant.
Thomas Edison, and then the can if oh my God, there's so many instances, the Tesla, there's instances of every aspect of innovation being kind of definitely pounced on from every direction. And I don't know, but that's the like I said, that's the beauty. That's what I want to keep. That's why I like to keep Counterparty
Yeah.
fun, and I like to keep minting assets. That's the real beauty. It's like you're really fighting back if you're having fun minting stuff just because you can and you want to, and in creating, like you said, and thinking about the future of like what would be fun, and like I said, Mike just kind of made the Rare Pepe and was like, oh, this would be fun, and it turned into like, wow, this is actually a lot of people think this is fun, and
You know, and again, another thing that's really cool about Mike is you know, like if he had a crazy ego or something, he could have become super toxic and really kind of dragged the community down, and it could have gone in a really weird or bizarre direction. But Mike stayed cool, and and him, spending the time, like really for free, spending the time to curate the first 1,000 cards on his own. I mean, he enabled this project like to basically to reach, I wouldn't say immortality, but a level of the relevance that it needed to bootstrap to become as notorious and infamous. And I mean, it's one of the most significant, like, crypto, like, I think even I would say Rare Pepe's goes even beyond like just NFTs. I think it's one of the most significant collections, art collections. Like, I don't know, it transcends so much. I think it's one of the most important collections in the crypto scene beyond just NFTs, if that makes sense.
I agree. I, as much as I might drink too much and go on Twitter and talk about other projects, I've started to realize that Counterparty, the base layer of that, with Olga, with just Test and the early spells of Genesis, Memory Chain,
Yeah.
Counterparty itself is this crazy melting pot of do whatever the fuck you want, and it's really cool. And the way that the history of it, Rare Pepes was the first one though to say, "Hey, artists, come in." Mike said, "I'm the scientist," but I'm sure there was other that he got help with and stuff. We know that later on there was other people that took over, and but that is super cool that he thought, that artists, he invited people to say, let's get the community to come in. And that's what, like you said, I agree, it's super influential. But Counterparty still exists. There's still projects made every day, and it's still early on the opportunity to make a community yourself, and like bring people from Venezuela, Japan, China, and Russia, like everywhere around the world, and say, you know what, I think that's cool too. I think Wojaks are funny. Wojak way, I think, and then they have their own little community, and and the communities in Counterparty, you go on like the Telegram, it's only like 200, 300 people, but damn, there's like 50 people talking every day, and they're making cards and joking and like referencing things, and they're active and fun and just doing it for the love of it. It's like I said, I don't know, it reminds me of that stuff you read from the 1960s, of people just kind of going out and doing it for the spirit, but instead of going onto someone's farm and flying flying Jimi Hendrix in on a helicopter, you're just doing it all digitally, so you're not really getting in people's way, or not, quote unquote, playing loud music, to annoy
I
people.
know it's something I bang the table about, but I think it bears repeating, is that, and to your point, is how different would the vibe be, and how differently would we look back on Rare Pepes if instead Mike had said, "Hey, yeah, you can submit a card, but you need to pay me $50 or a hundred
Oh, that,
bucks." I mean,
no one would fuck with that.
yeah, exactly. And it would, like, the vibe would be completely different. I mean, the fact that he was so selfless and just kept it as the other part again that is remarkable, that I like, you don't really see in modern, like, like most stuff is happening on F, like almost everything there's a cut for like a for like the exchange, like whether it's OpenSea or whatever. I mean, like if you get approved into Rare Pepes or into fake rares, you have full ownership of your asset. You can do whatever you want with it. You can burn it, you can sell it. I mean, there's no restrictions where, I don't know, I think it's one of the things that makes it like truly special, and led to the, like, that explosion of creativity and that diversity, of art and assets and people that contributed.
I 100% agree. I mean, you saw that happen in fakes with the small burn, SMOL, small, or was it Dank Farms? I forgot exactly what it was, but it was the Chad, got burnt
Yeah,
to zero. That was very similar to the POWH in Rare Pepe, which is a
yeah,
zero out, and I think Cornholio was the guy that
yes.
picked up the ownership of that. And
Oh, I know.
me and Indelible were kind of
I was
debating on
watching
it.
that auction. I was like, man, if I had the money, I'd make a play. But
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about that, the ownership of a token that doesn't even exist went for like $6,000, because it theoretically is the only thing left of the burnt Pepe. And he was smart to consider that valuable, and it paid for it. Yeah, for most people in the world, they would not understand why would you pay. Well, you bought a car for the zero out of nothing asset, but they don't realize sometimes that like how scarce the early assets are, like Rare Pepes. I mean, they're extremely scarce. I mean, I was a joke at once in the Rare Pepe chat years ago where people are like, well, look at the Pepe one coin. There's hundreds of billions of them, right? How many people are on the earth? Everyone would get one. But if you really think about it, like in the future, there's a hard ironclad cap on the supply of these assets, and so you are gonna get in the future people looking for a 1 out of 1,000 to put on their digital wall. You know what I'm saying? Or put
I,
like just like what people put their profile pictures, the CryptoPunks or and the like it's people are using their ownership as identity, and that's how it is in it gaming too. Anyway, I'm gonna ramble here for a sec because I
no,
feel
no,
like
I
yeah, go
agree.
ahead.
I mean, I think with a lot of these vintage assets, especially like rares, especially, I think people take for granted that you can get a hold of a lot of the, like, not the S tier, but a lot of the like still cool cards that are 100, 200, 300 supply for, in the hundreds of dollars. I think people are really taking for granted how truly rare this is in a global sense. I mean, a lot of these cards are, yeah, the nominal supply is, let's say, 300, but yeah, I mean, like a lot of these cards, a big percentage of the supply is in a wallet that hasn't moved in, let's say, 5 or 6 years or something. I mean, I don't know. A lot of this stuff is so rare. I think in the future, it's going to be near impossible to create a collection like beyond, let's say, like 300 or 400 cards. I mean, it's just going to become, I think it'll be cost prohibitive, and like having a big collection is going to be a huge flex.
Yeah, I mean, there's the aspect of people for all the OGs that are happen to be still here. They understand how the XCP DEX works. They understand how dispensers work and what to do and what not to do. But the people, that's the one thing I think that, and I'll come back to it, Steam and Valve and their market for Counter-Strike and skins, that is what Counterparty is. It's this open market where, let's say I do want to get a very high tier series 1 card, but I'm a new guy and I don't trust anybody, and someone's acting like they're an OG and just send me the money. Like, this system is designed for you to not have to trust anybody. The system is designed for you to put an order up and it gets filled or it doesn't, or you fill someone else's order, and obviously do as much research as you can for all the different functions. But that's so beautiful, and that's so under appreciated. And like you said, there's other projects, OpenSea, and on OpenSea I had a fake, the fake rare fake Tony, the ghost face killer one, got
Yeah,
taken
yeah.
down, just said I couldn't sell it. They took
Really?
down, they just said no, you can't sell it. You can't sell it. And like I know there's like Emblem Vault changes. They've done amazing work on there to linking the two chains, many chains together, and their work is just a cause for so many cool innovations. But it's just I've never yet seen like censorship like that on Counterparty. I haven't seen like it's just I want full freedom, and like I said, I want a project that gives people full freedom for their assets. I know there's caps now. You don't have to, you can't distribute until it's accepted. There's a lot of lessons that we've learned, but Rare Pepe is so historical because all of those lessons were learned. I mean, look at the first 5-6 series. There's like 1 out of 1 issuance. Only one Pepe, and then there's there's burn ones down from this and that, and they realized, oh, we need a minimum cap at 100. We really need that. Mike set that in stone. That was a first lesson. It was maybe one of many lessons that happened, and that Rare Pepe is a testament of the uh
No, and again, I to your point, it's not just the lessons learned, but the fact that they had, like, they were running it with integrity, right? So if they were trying to pull if they were trying to like do a pump and dump, or like pull out a bunch of cash, they necessarily wouldn't have cared about like making that minimum 100, and they could have, like, you know tried to make a cash grab out of the low issuance ones by charging extra fee for submission or something like that. But yeah, they wanted it to be something that people could collect, and they realized that, I mean, imagine if they allowed it even for 1 or 2 more series where there were a bunch of like 10 and 20, 25 supplies, it would have really messed up the distribution and like I don't know. For me, it's like, of course, there's an allure and a mystique of having these low supply cars and owning one. I mean, I'm lucky enough to own a 50 supply card, but it's frustrating for collectors when they like, if I mean, imagine if there were like two series of or two seasons of like 25 supply cards, it'd really frustrate a lot of people that, it'd be near impossible to own any of those, right?
Yeah, no, and the decisions that were made, I'm glad that it happened. It was a culmination of the Pepe freeze, the fees, and of I think Mike was just as always kind of kept a keen eye on the chat and understood different viewpoints. And a lot of people that are really good, close people in Rare Pepe heavily disagree with each other. I mean, you see it every day on every
Yeah,
single, and that's good. That's what it's supposed to be like,
that's
I
not
actually
mean spirited. Yeah.
yeah, and it's always been like that, and we've joked around and memed on each other, but at the end of the day, it's we drink a beer and laugh about it or whatever, and okay, mint it, like go for it, let's see it happen, do it, put your words on actions and let's see it, and I mean, yeah. Anyway, I like what Skrilla did with like I said, historical things happened. You put music on the blockchain. You put now full you have assets with full videos and full just very artistic expressions of intellectual property, and everyone is invited to the party, and it's fun, it's cool, and it I don't know. It's just I've started to realize that it's just the best thing you can do is just have fun and be mint stuff, man. Like be
I
yourself
mean,
and you
yeah,
know.
and that's I guess what I'm trying to get at is that like the ethos and the intention behind it created a really different vibe in people creating these assets for fun instead of really what you see a lot more on the like a lot of these big collections that are popular on Ethereum where they have a business plan behind it, right? Like with Yuga Labs where they created the apes and they're like, or there's a ton of these other collections where they um that went through that big annual PFP collection where they have a business plan where not only are they getting they're selling the mint for X amount, and then they're predicated on collecting royalties off of the secondary sales, where that's never been a thing at Counterpart. You don't get royalties. You know, it is what it is, right? So
Yeah, and like I said, like as a gamer, if I'm playing Fortnite and the rare skin gets dropped again, or the people that I'm playing the game are having fun or engaging in their structure, if I feel that, I think Mike knew that. Like to answer your question previously, I think everybody in the Republic community knew that. It was like, no, people are going to know how it feels, and
yeah.
eventually they get bit connected, and my wife doesn't even believe in me anymore, so it's just like but but yeah, I don't know. I guess I could move on from some
Oh,
of these ideas into one of my commons would be the Watterson Pep. It's got accepted in Commons, and it's on Bill Watterson from Calvin and Hobbes, and
mhm.
it's got little Calvin coming out of his cardboard box, which was his little VR machine, in the comics, so
Yeah.
he could go into the past or do whatever he wanted. And I put a little test in uh, a hair Pepe on it, and it's me coming out, oh, still making snow art. And there's a little snowman that another Calvin is making with the notable one of the notables on there, one of the newer
Mhm.
projects, and they're like, yep, still make a snow art. And I don't know, the little things that I wrote at the bottom, keeps artist rights, never sells out. He's always looking on X Chain. Tracer Bullet was like this character that Calvin had, and then hands the torch off of like, I really like the way that Fakes is doing it, and I like that it's built on all of those things. And Bill Watterson himself never sold the rights to Calvin and Hobbes. He just sits, and he's
Well, that's
very
really cool.
reclusive. So it's this whole, and he's a comic artist too. I mean, he's a political commentary and just amazing artist for referencing. Like, oh, we look at the Rare Pepes, we're like, oh, look at the Cubists, look at this and that. Man, Bill
Mhm.
Watterson was doing that in Sunday Pages, already long time ago. And I definitely see a huge, Matt Fury was a comic artist, the original where Pepe comes from. So it's like you got to put respect to like the in a certain circumstance. Sometimes I feel like that's what we're doing too, is making little political commentaries or comics about our life, and in really cool new ways that are based on memes instead of just something we create, like, like we're creating a Bugs Bunny. We don't need to do that anymore. We just use Pepe Sylvia meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and then we're done.
I think something that you brought up, I just hit on me too, is that, at least in the US, there's like, it's acceptable. Like there's this public persona or this public idea that's it's acceptable to sell out if it make a lot of money for a whatever reason, where not selling out is, I think, has a ton of power. I mean, like, I was thinking of like Gary, what was it, Gary Larson that made The Far Side. I mean, I don't think he ever sold out either. I mean, think of how differently you would look back on some of these old projects if they sold it out and ended up being used for sell like used cars or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
No,
integrity is
that's
I mean,
that's
that's the
super cool.
blockchain for you, though. I mean,
Yeah.
everything's public. Like I said, if let's say
Mhm.
we go into the future and we have that pro op skin, with all the
Mhm.
little, the transactions signed of all the wins he has, pros, and and someone lied to you about it, or they just try to use it for profit, it's like that would ruin it so much, and you don't want to, like, I don't know. That people are gonna do it. They've been doing it since the beginning, though, and I don't know. We all hate scammers. Send them. Make it. I like that people they mint tokens on Counterparty called "This is a scammer. Don't trade with him," and then send all the people that that they know. Ah, I love that. I love that, because then they have it publicly on the blockchain, and you can look it
Yeah.
up that they sent it. Oh, it's so great. It's like a graffiti. You're like spray painting on their lawn. Like. It's cool. Like it's kind of Snow Crash, like, the things that there's a lot of, I mean, Jason Lowry, G Money has been really pushing that thesis with bit power, right? And there seems to be art, culture, and bit power all wrapped in these NFTs, and it's fun. It's cool. It's it's definitely like a new form of, like, I don't know, you could frame it as like nonviolent action if you're looking at like the political sense, like MLK, but it's like digital nonviolent action. It's like
Well, that's
digital sandbox action. It's cool.
that's how I view cryptocurrency. Is I view this as like, this is one of our most effective ways to create a nonviolent revolution, in the sense that we can, in the previous frames, right, you would have to attack in order to overcome a existing orthodoxy, where instead we can build an entirely new system and just make the old one obsolete, right? So we can build a new framework, move over to it, and let the old die, right? Instead of having to go to war with the old system, right? So um I don't know. But there's another card too that you created, that I saw you on Twitter post that, and I fell in love with it immediately, which was the Pepe Solo.
Oh
Um,
yeah, Thomas Sowell. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, man. I had seen some of his quotes, and I had seen a couple clips of him talking on, and again, I have to admit, I have a bit of a libertarian bent to me, but the fact that he very clearly communicates a, like, and again, we have there's these overarching like memes or messages going on about basically disempowering the individual, and basically submitting to the idea that you're oppressed, and that you're like, soul is all about like taking responsibility for your own situation, and instead of focusing on the lot that you were dealt, like hustling and really doing what you can to get ahead. And I really think that resonates with me personally. So I think it's
It's
super powerful.
Before I get into it, the when I remember I was talking to an old boss and I brought up Thomas Sowell, and he typed into Google and typed in his name, and all you got was just like these kind of hit pieces, hit articles on him. And I realized that
Mhm.
even just saying a person's name, it wasn't, if they search into Google in the first pages and don't even read anything or never, just read the headlines, oh, I think I know what this guy might be about. That's completely wrong. The more I looked into interviews of Thomas Sowell, I'm sorry, I'm slurring my words because there's so much good data out there, and so much. His Charlie Rose interview is crazy. Like
He's
Charlie
really
Rose,
deep. he's really a like I watched a few interviews with him. He's very deep, like he's a deep thinker, and he's not just spouting off the cuff. He when he's giving his opinion on a subject, he has a reason for giving that opinion, because he's actually considered like the, you know, at least a couple steps deep into like the why, right? Instead of
Mhm.
just the surface level.
And his like exploration, that's what the card is about. Pepe Soul is a exploration on public data and like requesting data and really going through, well, what does the record show of this and that, and for like what is this like when we engaged in this political thing nationally or statewide, or like he just he would he you want someone like that when you give him a very complex thing to literally probably talk to you for like 3 days about it, because of how many small things add up to your answer that you're asking. And I loved that. And there's that, like in the crypto world or on the Rare Pepe and Counterparty, there's the XCP and Pepe Cash sales, there's arbitrage, there's the history of the sales on Pepe.wtf, there's everything that we mentioned before. And it felt like when I was doing that, I was, holding the book by, the like a book they give business majors, economics majors, basic economics, and this is basic economics for me is, look, this Pepe sold for cheaper than, or this is cheap now because I know I can see it all. It's public, and I can make a really, really, you know, ironclad observation on value, and the art,
Yeah.
the joke here is the price history is the value, but it's also, I wanted to inspire people to kind of look into his work. And he has a lot of, the Charlie Rose interview is crazy because he rips a lot of, I respect some of the Charlie Rose interviews, but he rips Charlie up for just having these pre-prepared questions, not really being as ready as he should be.
I'll have
And
to. I need to watch that then. Oh, that'll be on my to-do list.
it's definitely one where like he has to fight. He's kind of jumping into the lion's den of symbolically, but there's some other interviews where it actually goes deeper. But he has so many books. It would probably take a lifetime to even just get into a lot of his books. And basic economics is a thick boy, but I liked the art for it. And I really I enjoyed putting a tie-dye shirt on him because I doubt he would ever be into that culture. Knowing his history, he grew up during, or he was a professor around the 60s, and he has a lot of stories about dealing with a lot of movements at that time and trying to like rip apart even what you might consider the most wholesome thing nowadays. And he goes, well, let's think about it, and then this and that, and it opens my eyes to like, wow, I should ask more questions on even things that I agree with sometimes, a lot. So, but
Yeah,
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
yeah, it really resonated with me, and I really appreciate you hooking me up with one. You know, for one thing that I think is purposely obfuscated from the populace is the stark reality of the economic system and the realities that poses. I really encourage people that have any inkling of interest to just read like something super simple, like there's this classic called Fiat Money, Inflation in France, which is a short read, or there's another book about the Weimar inflation, like the death of money. I mean,
Mm,
there's like we're purposely kept, like the public schooling and even college education, you're kept ignorant of what's going on purpose. And like the basics of economics aren't super complicated, but they have like enormous enormous uh enormous consequences in our real world. So anyway, I see him
I
as like his like the what was resonated with me is the bits that I read about him, the speech. I saw a couple clips of him talking about is like really the essence of of economics, and the fact that, like you were saying, it's like making the best of things in an ethical manner, like doing the
Yep.
best you can, and hustling, right?
Yep. And I yeah, that's what a lot of people, that's what the community's doing. I mean, I just want to give a shout out to another artist that I think hustles way more than me, and it's Ad Modem. He's came into the scene during Commons when that dropped, and he's dropped some just amazing pieces. And that's a great example of hustling. He's just threw down so many works of all different types, of just beautiful works to cool degenerative funny pieces or political or just, you know, artsy things. And he's one of the first people that I've talked to about, like, you know, I'm talking to you right now and you're really into it, you're interested, which is very, very thin in this world, that people, one, know about this stuff, two, are interested in and care, or three, actually even understand, like, know what it's about, or what we're doing. And he was the only person that I was like introduced this to. He had already minted something on OpenSea. It didn't do well at all. You know, it was this kind of cool abstract, like modern type art. And it kind of reminded me of like Greek architecture or whatever. And I was like, yo, you gotta, I sent him link to Fake Rares, Rare Pepe, and I was like, check Counterparty out. Like, you need, try to get into like you know, a collection, or somebody that's curating it. And he did, and it just, he was the first person of, no joke, hundreds that I've told about this stuff. I used to tell everybody in the world about this, but the issue is, after the whole NFT thing that went down, everyone saw, you know, this NFT sold for 2 million, now it's selling for 3,000, and everyone in the world, normies as they call it or whatever, are just like, oh, it's so worthless and stupid. And I'm just sitting here like, I'm having a blast. I don't know, I feel like I'm in you know, a music festival chilling, and you guys just, you're like, oh, the music went out. You know, it's like, no, it didn't. We've been playing, there's a bunch of stages you can play on out here, you know, like, I don't know.
As long as I can like cover my costs, to me, I think is amazing just to have my work entered into the directory. You know, I mean, that's that's all that matters to me personally. I mean, I'm like you, I'm having fun. Like, I think it's like I've got a fake rare in the directory now. I'm super proud of. Um,
I'm jealous. I'm trying to get one, but I literally just submitted that comment right as we're during this interview. So I've got like another comment coming out, but one day I'll hopefully get a fake rare. And I hope you mentioned you may be submitting to notables too. So I hope you get in, man. It's a huge experience to say, like, I mean, what notables, Vincent Van Gogh, right?
yeah,
The Skrilla for fake rare. There are almost every single one of these projects are, you're going to get your art seen by influential, just people that are just stoked to have you there, you know,
and
and like
for
in
people that
submitting.
aren't familiar with Vincent Van Gogh, I mean, he's one of the like back during the NFT boom, he was one of the few people that had the resources and the appreciation for the OG like Pepe and counterparty scene. Like, because there were just all these F guys that would just pump like the new stuff. He was probably the like I would say the like the most influential guys from the I don't know from I don't know what how you describe his background, but he really advanced the both the NFT scene and the Pepe scene. It was I don't remember whether it was him or starting at Capital, which he was managing at the time, but he actually negotiated the purchase of Boys Club, like that the the comic that was minted of the first like introduction of Pepe the Frog. I mean, it's I mean, a ton of other like he created one of the most influential collections of rares and fakes too, and is an avid collection, and you know is running notables too. So you know, I mean, and it took some conviction as a much more public figure than you and I, the sense that there's still like a lot of normies that have the stigma about Pepe the Frog from back in the day that were, you know, anyway. So
I think in my experience, I think I watched a documentary. It's just like, you know, you type into YouTube, right?
yeah,
On just like you know, whatever's filtered to you, however it is nowadays, and Pepe history, right? And I watched one last
yeah,
night, and I was like with a friend, and I had to have him pause it and be like, also at this time, then there was Matt Fury, and then there was the Rip, and then there was this, and then there was Hillary, and then, you know, and there's so much more history to a lot of those documentaries. But at the end of the day, I mean, Hong Kong Bitcoin truckers, Twitch people,
yeah.
like feels like everyone knows Pepe is just this cartoon frog that makes an expression of how you're feeling. And sometimes you you know, I don't think anybody likes when it's explicit or terrible, you know, and like obviously there's going to be some, you know, bullies there you know, in the schoolyard, and everyone's going to be mean about it, but general consensus 99.9%, come on, like, end racism, Pepe, we are all one, Pepe, or like, come on,
Yeah,
there's
I mean,
like that everyone knows that we're here for, you know, love and not like
yeah, the Feels
anything
Good
else.
documentary, I think, really lays it out. And I think what I don't think what they covered enough though is I wasn't hanging out in Fortnite at the time, but I it's not like I was hanging out there a ton anyway. I never really like, hung out there much, but like my understanding of it's basically like edge lords at the time making the most racist stuff just to scare off normies. Like I don't really think outside of maybe a handful of racists, it was actually like a serious movement, like with the racist stuff with Pepe even back then. But normies saw it, and that was enough to, that was the purpose. Is like a lot of the 4chan guys trying to scare off normies from appropriating their meme, and yeah, it worked, but it, you know what I mean. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, yeah, I mean, people, they can. It's just a sandbox, and once you take,
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
Pepe's a sandbox, so you take possession of it, and you're gonna express yourself by what you make out of it, and that's your responsibility. What was I? I was gonna talk about Skrilla's card, Fake
yeah.
History, right? And it's
Mhm.
that one guy that got punched on the camera, right? Like they was interviewing and like had a Pepe pin and was acting all racist or whatever, and white
Mhm.
supremacist, and some hooded guy come up and punched him on the camera. I remember seeing Fake History and not knowing that like that happened, and that actually happened. Like there was some that I would think I forgot what city it was in, and but that card is so interesting about the music is the is beautiful. The lyrics are freaking cool. And it's so, you know, inclined for OGs and the history of it. That card is definitely something to check out. If it's literally the history of Pepe in a card in the Fake
Yeah,
Rare collection. This is meta. It's cool, man. It's
yeah. I
I
mean, like Skrilla's work is really like it's really amazing in the sense that like he has this kind of like he's kind of adopted this like a signature style that you can recognize now. But one thing that I think like if you're not familiar with OG rares that you like wouldn't know off the bat is like if you look at that Kim.com one, he has a tremendous amount and like a tremendous skill in the like traditional art too. Like if you look at that at a glance, you'd almost mistake that for a photograph or like a tracing from a photograph. He's got tremendous skill for the traditional art too. So
and
he's
just
definitely goats for in the crypto art scene.
I was super fortunate. It's a funny story. I went to the NFT NYC. I flew out there. First time I'd ever been in New York. So beautiful, amazing city. I always want to go back. Culture there is so cool, architecture, history, everything. And but I got to meet him, and he's really down to earth. I got to meet Mysterious Aesthetic. Oh, super cool story. I met Emblematics, right? And
Oh yeah.
Emblematics, I shake his hand, and he goes, I'm like, oh, he's like, yo, everyone there was like Davesta, you know. I'm like, oh, Davesta, yeah, yeah, that's me, you know, whatever. We like tell each other the names of like what our little meme names that we've been under for years, and like, oh, Mysterious Aesthetic, what's up? But anyway, Lennox looks at me and he goes, you were the first one to ever give me a card. You sent me a Breitbart Pep, like right when I got into Rare Pepe. Someone said post your address, and you sent me one, and I was like, wow. And now your art is like behind me and looks so like that made me feel so cool that like I never consider myself a very amazing artist. Maybe in the future I might hone my skills better, but went to be influential, to like show somebody the process of counterparty and then be able to meet them later and see their work, you know, and just being successful. I got to be, you know, Pepe Nardo, I got a Sean, like, I mean, all these people are just absolute goobers. All of them are such goobers, dude. And it was such a cool experience. I mean, like, but like I think I don't know. I'm just thinking about Skrilla and thinking about the early days of, like I said, when I first got in there, Series 31, nobody knew about these people. I didn't know about Da Vinci. I didn't know about Easy B, and they just kept fighting and kept like pushing, and now they're like in the future going to be regarded as these were some of the first artists to ever do this and set in stone in history, and that should not be ignored, you
I mean,
know, at all.
I think it. Yeah, I mean, I think we owe a tremendous debt not just to Mike and to Skrilla and the OG scientists, which we know, and I don't know who the scientists are on the fake rares, but I
Mhm.
mean, again, it would be so easy for them to like sell out or like slide off, but they've I don't know, again, like keeping this, it's this is like a it's a job. I'm sure it's it makes their eyes bleed reviewing all of these things, and it's like
Yeah.
it's not a paid gig either. It's a labor of love. So I don't know, like we owe a lot for them to like keep it legit too. I mean, anyway, like it's an amazing thing. I can echo your statement. I haven't met any guys in person, but I've talked to a bunch of them, and these guys are like I haven't met anyone that's been lame in the OG Pepe scene so far. I mean, everyone's been super cool. So
Yeah. I I mean, just another shout out to like J Dog too for always listening to the community and like dude, he goes so deep on just even in the last couple of years for Rare Doge Party, the Rare Doge directory, and having sometimes people don't want to deal with Bitcoin, or they want to be on Ethereum, or they want to, you know what I'm saying? And just like some people want to be in their own little sandbox because they like the rules, or they like the way distribution works, or whatever they want. And
yeah.
it's like I love that if you go to the Rare Doge directory, that's a
Mhm.
completely different community of people. It's a lot more lighthearted and cute, and there's rejects, and it's a lot of people just like dogs, and they incorporate that. And some huge, like Marie with real Doge punks. I mean, there's a lot of aspects of that scene that blew up too for, you know, just for people enjoying that stuff and wanting to be a part of it, and kind of dance along with it. And
I mean,
anyway,
and
yeah,
yeah, Doge Party is really slept on the historic scene too. I mean, there's a lot of really early tokens and you know stuff that was done there that people aren't aware of too. So I don't know. I think more people will be aware of that in the future as well.
100%. I made a couple cards on Doge. I got a couple. I got it's always sunny in Philadelphia one, and then
I
there
mean,
was
yeah,
actually, yeah,
I
go
was
ahead.
look. I mean, I've got a couple, but there were some people that were cool enough to send me some of the rare Doge cards, and like some of those I thought were super cool. So they had some of the OG artists that would from Pepe's and from fakes that would that moved and did like would issue in the rare Doge scene. Like there's like the I would butcher his name to pronounce it, but the guy who created the clay rare and then the clay fake, and he did
Yeah,
a clay Doge. I mean, there's like the Planet of the Pepes one artist created like a Planet of the Doge one. I mean, which I
yeah.
mean, I don't know. There's a bunch of super cool cards in Doge Party.
Yeah, and I like the way that they did. Like, there's a lot of this is what I mean. I mentioned before, quote unquote, like issues you might have for like people minting under 100 in the early Rare Pepe days, and in Doge Party they just said, okay, we're gonna make it 100 to start with. So they kind of did that. But I like what they did with the rejects. So instead of rejecting them, like, oh, like this is fake, like we're not gonna put it
Yeah.
in the directory, you have the real directory and then the reject directory. And I've seen people that are like, please reject this. I want this to be in the reject directory because it is like described as a meme about being rejected or whatever.
Oh,
And
cool.
I like, yeah, there's some deep collectors over there, PK, private key. There's a lot of really cool, like I said, there's a lot of cool experimentation happening with every new project that comes up. There was I'll get into it briefly. It's a little taboo, but it's really cool that I was a part of it. But on Doge, there was this project they did, Doge KVLT, or like Colt, and I think we know who it is, but it was this kind of this random person minted the card and then sent it to 100 different artists that had already been working in Doge Party, right? And then said, okay, when we mint in this collection, you have to send all of the members that have a KVLT card one of the cards. And the cap for issuance is 125, and the cap for KVLT cards is 100. So everybody gets one, and then you can sell more if you want. And it was like this like invite only. We saw the token in our account. No one told anybody about it. It's just like you saw it and you're like, oh crap, this is a new thing. And we had like two series in there. Eventually people stopped minting and doing stuff. I have like some weird inside jokes on that, but it was like the dark side of Doge. definitely just absolute degens in that chat. But it was fun, it was interesting, and I really like the idea of the distribution method of that. And like, okay, now we can, if you hold this token, then you can send the distributed cards to them. And it was supposed to be culty, and it's supposed to be a club or whatever. And I thought that was cool. I mean, like, no one had ever done distribution like that. No one had ever I don't think it worked that well. I mean, it's not really alive now, but I respect all the people that, like, it's a lot of drama that happened. But I respect anybody that's going to think innovatively about the ways to distribute artist cards, to have directories, what type of like content is going to be a part of it. Like, that was dark content. Like, it was the nice Doge world, and then you had Heaven's Gate, Doge taking sleeping pills because of the star that's passing above you. Like, wow, that's dark. Oh God. But it's cool. I mean, that's what I think, that should expand to all avenues. And
I mean,
but like,
and
yeah.
Doge Party allows you to, like, because it's so cheap to mint and interact with, it allows you to be like, to experiment and not be super expensive. I mean, Counterparty's already pretty cheap, but like now, like, our transactions are kind of creeping back up with stamps and ordinals and whatnot on Bitcoin. So Doge Party is like, Doge is one of the cheapest chains to interact with. So you know that's super cool.
Yeah, and if you know how to do, work free wallet on Counterparty, you know how to work, Doge wallet. So it's, same developer. So it's super. Yeah, I'm excited for the future. I really am. And I'm excited I just minted that common. So in the future, you guys will see a new card. It may or may not have something to do with Counter-Strike again. Um, but I'm excited
Yeah,
to.
any plans on how you're gonna are you gonna be you want to show how you're gonna drop that? Are you gonna drop dispensers, or how are you gonna go with distribution?
I'm learning from, like I said, Ad Modem. He's hustling. He started that Twitter account. He does giveaways. I'm kind of learning from him. After he came into the scene and made a huge name for himself as an artist, I'm just kind of seeing what he's doing. And I finally woke up from Twitter. I don't know. I missed the drop for notables, right? Because I live under a rock, and that was the card for Watterson Pep, was supposed to be me coming out of the little box that I lived in, and joining Twitter and seeing what, all you guys were up to. And I'm glad I did, because I would have been still living under a rock. That's why I'm going to drop it. I'm going to do Twitter giveaway. I'll have the dispenser up after I give it away. And Pepe drops at the moment. The WTF are going, it takes a while after you submit. So I'll do probably a couple on the side. And I hopefully, if I do Pepe drops with it, then the early dispensers will be much cheaper. So if you came into that, and I'll close it before it goes on drop. So if you get in early, you get in low. But I mean, at the end of the day, for me, it's just huge to keep minting. And dude, to have Pepe.wtf, to have the drop, like the other day, they dropped the shitcoin card, the
Oh
original Rare
yeah.
Pepe.
Mhm.
So they did it
Yeah.
twice. They did two drops when they had, a big supplier came up. And I think Jamie, had been contacting people that want to do that. And I wasn't around when I came around. When I came around, you had to go to Poloniex, you had to deal with the chat box. All right, first of all. Then you had to buy the XP or Pepe Cash or whatever, on some exchange, and then bring it back. You didn't have dispensers. There are so many tools now for you to
I mean,
just go everywhere and learn everything so quick compared to what I had to go through. So
and Pepe WTF and Scarce City have really, like, taken the counterparty scene to the next level. Like, being able to jump on like Pepe WTF and see the price across like all the different like methods of, between dispensers and OpenSea and whatnot. I mean, that's super cool, being able to see the distribution, and have the drops now too. And Scarce City also has their own marketplace as well, where, I don't know, it's taken the, you know again, like you're saying, like, there used to be like a crazy arbitrage before Pepe WTF popped up. There'd be this crazy arbitrage between like OpenSea and the DEX, right? Where every now and then
oh
you
my
could,
God.
like, you could sell something on OpenSea and then buy it back for, a third on the DEX. Just like,
There was a span of, like, in 2021, I think there was a span of 2 months where I saw arbitrage every single day. Every single day. It was before when it was basically Pepe What the Fuck dropped. A lot of people that were on Counterparty didn't know about OpenSea and were still using the prices from dispensers and XCP. And it started just not making sense, because per asset would be like $100, and then 5,000 and then it'd be 3,000. You're like, what is going on? But it was that's the influx of, a very limited supply market, because, Pepe's only have small amounts of supply. So it's going to be large price jumps sometimes, up and down. And I'm glad that now that everyone knows about these tools, it's really evened out. There's not much arbitrage anywhere. You either it's floor or not. And that's good. It's good that it evened out. But there was there was a crazy span of like couple weeks there where you had wallets waking up where they didn't know what was going on. It was quite a show.
Oh, Dave, I mean the worst is like I don't know, it made me sick when there was that, the shitcoin cards came from a wallet that woke up. That had the two Ric Flair Pepes.
Oh, everyone's sad about that one.
Oh my God.
And
I
shout
mean,
out J
that's
Dog for scanning the old fashioned way and saying, "Wow, look at that order that came up. I'll put in a million Pepe cash for it for for a rare Pepe." It would be J Dog too. And then he goes in
yeah.
chat and he's like, "Look, guys," we're like, "Oh, God damn it, dude! Why?" I needed to get up 1 hour earlier, get my coffee up. That would have changed my life.
I mean,
But
and
that happens. It happens.
it happens. I mean, but to me, for me, the Ric Flair Pepe is one of the absolute favorites in the entire directory. That, I mean, it's a Skrilla card too, 3 supply. Oh my God, that's a, once in a lifetime opportunity. So hats off to whoever got that. But
Yeah.
I'm
I
I'm
mean,
still I'm still a little bit butthurt about that.
that's the power of the counterparty decks. And I think a lot of the newbies don't know this. They've kind of bought from dispensers, they bought from OpenSea,
Yeah.
they don't realize that on the counterparty decks, I can put up buy orders for XCP. And sometimes traders, one day they're like, I need to just get it out. I need to get these cards out, and they'll sell them to you for so cheap. And sometimes OGs will like, oh, you're asking for Pepe cash? Ooh, I got you. I'll give you a discount. And they just do it. They just do it, and it just happens. And there's an instance of that all over. And that comes back to the Pepe Soul card. If you really an OG in the Rare Pepe world, you're going to buy with XCP and Pepe cash, because that was the original arbitrage. That was the original kind of, and every time historically, it's usually the place where the deals are. And it's just the easiest way to do it. I mean, Emblem Vault is amazing, but it's quite a headache to bring counterparty NFTs to OpenSea, pay all the fees for the mints, pay all this and that. And, if you want to do it on Matic, then you got to switch networks and, this and that. People would rather have it on the native XCP decks that already exist. I've seen newbies come into the counterparty chat and be like, when decks? We're just like, question mark, question mark, question mark. Like, what? It's been here for a long time, man. Like,
And I really do, like, hats off to Emblem. It's an amazing tool. However, like, I view that as kind of like for like as a short term, like, slash trading vehicle. But because, like, long term, like, these are, again, even though like the prices for a lot of these are low right now, I view these Rare Pepes as some of the most valuable digital artifacts that exist, right? And essentially, at the end of the day, Emblem is a custodial product. So, you have a element of trust slash risk that is not there if you have it on the native chain. So, like, if you're like the stuff that you're planning on keeping long term, like, I wouldn't hold an Emblem. But if you're trying to get, like, usually the best price is usually on Ethereum, is where a lot of the liquidity is at. So it makes sense if you're trying to sell, to vault something and sell it. But if you're trying to keep in the most secure form, you have a counterparty risk there with Emblem. So it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. And, luckily though, I like, I'm not a coder.
Yeah.
I'm straight up at the base of everything. I'm a collector and enthusiast, because I'm just so, ecstatic or, eclectic about the project and projects that I've been a part of. But Emblem, it does put a cryptographic, like, chain in the record when you crack the keys. And so
Yeah. I mean,
there is elements that, and I like I said, I do, there's a lot of people in the community that feel that risk. I've used Emblem. I love it. It's crazy. It changed the game. It changed the game
yeah.
entirely to get on OpenSea. And it's definitely made a lot of the original artists, like, I mean, I sold a Breitbart on there for like $600 or something like that. And that's not a normal price for that. But somebody really, had the Ethereum there, didn't want to go through the process, and that's how it worked. And I got, you know, lucky that the mint fees were way ridiculous. I probably shouldn't have even done it, but it's cool to distribute like that and have it distributed everywhere. There's looks rare. There's the I haven't tried it out, the X2Y2 or whatever. I don't know what
I've
it
used
is.
that. It's legit. But but I guess what I'm getting at is that even if you accept the like, there's risk, there's I guess layers of risk with Emblem in the sense that there's the technology risk, right? Where there's and again, I think it's pretty baked at this point, but the other risk too is the because it's custodial, like they're a legal entity, and theoretically, and like, if they get sued or something happens, who knows what their liabilities and what would happen if someone like sues them and they have to, I don't know, it could get really messy in terms of them, theoretically they can turn off your ability to, my understanding, at least currently, is that, the absolute worst case situation is they can stop your ability to redeem, right?
Yeah,
So
I think Keanu, what is it? PK, I forgot his name. He went through a lot of that with the OpenSea, like a hack that happened. And it's scary because what you're referencing, I think what you're referencing is when you make the Emblem Vault, you click this contract thing where it says you
yeah,
give Emblem Vault all these response things, and it's, scary thing about Ethereum is like it's just like 0x00. Is this what you want to do? It doesn't actually show you like the terms and conditions. They expect you to know, which is scary. That's why I don't really use Ethereum too much, and I'm scared of a lot of that because I come from Counterparty where it was just you look on Xchain and it happens. It's in the OP return right there. That's the zeros and X's or whatever. But
yeah,
clicking that button on Ethereum is, like you said, a custodial decision.
yeah.
It's there. You say that you agree with it.
Yeah, I mean, they essentially have a web service where, again, this is my understanding, where, when you're cracking a vault, essentially they have the private key is sharded amongst, like, or they have it sharded in, like, across a particular service or whatever, where when you sign the transaction, then it reassembles it and blah blah blah. But essentially, like, long and short of it is, like, for example, with like the Namecoin assets, they provide a very, like, not just useful, like a really great service where they will automatically renew your registration for Namecoin assets. But in order to do that, they have access to your private key, right?
Mm.
So in a similar sense, like any counterparty or anything else, there is a non-zero risk that you can get rugged, whether it's through legal pressures on counterparty, I mean, on Emblem, or whether like one of the developers or owners who has super admin rights, or multiple of them get compromised and their keys get stolen or whatever. So it's just,
That
my
that and
point
that
is,
that all of that's that happened before. True.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
that. You're
totally.
not wrong. You're not wrong.
That's what happened to what was that big corporation that got hacked recently? It was like, the way they got hacked is they had a super admin that his personal workstation at home got hacked, and then from that they were able to harvest his credentials that were able to um that he used in order to log into the repos, and his secure access to the company that he was administering. So it's a non. I guess the point is that I think Emblem is super cool and I use it. However, like, there's non-zero risk. So and again, I think, you know anyway, just keep that in mind.
Yeah,
So
yeah. There's also non-zero risk in theoretically counterparty, because you'd have to run the nodes that read the OP return functions, host Xchain. They could theoretically still happen, but the tools that you would be quote unquote custodial to do so. You could still theoretically code it if you knew what you're doing, but it would be. But it's also that could happen, with Bitcoin. What if theoretically, we nuked every single location of every single, server that's known? It would take a lot, and it could be, there's, but
yeah, sure.
yeah, but I know I agree with you. I definitely see, G Money doesn't touch it. I know he doesn't. There's a lot of, like I said before, there's a lot of people in the community that um I like that they have issues with certain answers to questions, and I think we should all go as experiment with how we're going to do that. On on the brighter side of things, let's say, this is a great, custodial service, and the shards are great. I think a lot of cool things happen from Emblem too, like Bag, for instance,
Oh
Indelibles,
yeah, that's a
you
great.
know, with
Yeah, that's a
fractional
great.
art,
Mhm.
so they're, anyway, I'm just for experimentation, and everything, every stone should be turned for every which reason, to really understand,
Yeah, and I'm not trying
you
to
know.
sound
Oh yeah.
to
Oh, yeah, I
sound
know.
down on it. I'm just like, I just think that people are quite aware of the like, you know, I as long as people are educated, I think it's fine. And again, like I'm using it for some of my assets currently too,
Yeah,
but
same, same,
yeah.
same.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, let's talk about Bag. I think that's really a fascinating project that has come out recently too. I mean, it's blown up since I heard about it. It's become one of the top 100 like collections for rare Pepes, if I'm correct, right?
Oh yeah, for individual cards here, let's look it up right now. It was at 20. Oh, it's loading. It was in the low 20s. It's about to hit the top 20 for unique cards. It's at 23 right now,
Uh-oh.
with 466 unique cards. It's kind of like a an ETF in a way, Pepe ETF, where the fund, like the token bag is backed by rare Pepes, or whatever you send to the bag, counterparty assets. It can even be, because of Emblem Vault, it allows for cross chain. It can be Doge, it can be, a lot of different chains that they support,
Mhm.
and the contract itself is wrapped in the fractional art contract, and it fractional dot art, and dude, it's I thought it was very genius and of an experiment, and it's gaining ground. It's super cool, and I don't know, a lot of everyone was watching Pepe, was watching all these random, shit coins of loyal or this or that or whatever. I don't know
Yeah.
what the new ones are, but when Bag came out, I thought it was a scam for sure. I was like, what? Why are these OGs doing this? And then I read about it, and I was like, oh, it's backed by, Rare Pepe's on Emblem Ball. I already used that. I've seen fractional art used with a Rare Pepe. There's a Feels Good Man now. The Matt
Mhm.
Fury's Rare Pepe
Yeah.
card is on fractional art because it's so goddamn expensive. Hush, hush. But it would have been nice for a better distribution. Wink, wink. But
Yeah, I know, right?
it's just my opinion, I guess. But um, yeah, but I mean, that's so cool where you can, now people, like, it might be in the future where Pepes are really hard to come by, and Bag is an easy way to kind of hold a significant amount of a large collection. It's a cool experiment, and I don't know, it kind of like, I like, it's the antithesis of, like, literally, if you go read the freaking Pepe contract or whatever, the website for the Pepe shitcoin or whatever, at $Pepe,
Mhm.
and they literally say on their website, it's just for the meme. It literally doesn't mean shit. And they say that. They just say that. And I mean, maybe that's why I got so successful, whatever, because it was symbolic. But I think it's cool that Bag is like, no, this is a purpose. And there was a project before it that tried it with the Pepe Cash.vip or whatever, where they
Yeah.
put like 300,000 Pepe Cash, which is not that much for you
Yeah.
normies, newbies. It's really not that much Pepe Cash. And they tried to, they pumped it on this chain for millions and millions of market cap, and it just tanked because it wasn't backed on like actual value. Whereas Bag, it pumped because it was a new just name on Dex tools, but it's sunk down to its almost at its appropriate value. It's pretty damn close now, where
Oh, cool.
it's almost at its appropriate value for what the Pepes are backed by in the bag. And I think I'm really enthusiastic about it. I think it's so cool. I really enjoy the community there, and
I
the
love
questions, that we
I
were
love the
asking there.
concept too. I think it solves another problem, which, maybe for non-degens, they may not relate, but, for hardcore collectors, like I have a hard time letting go of anything I only have one of. And this gives you the ability to have exposure to a big collection and have a fungible token where you can like sell in and like buy in and sell out of without having like the heartache of, letting go of your only one of a particular card type thing. So I think from that aspect, it's super cool too, um, as well.
And it's just another invitation. In the beginning, it was always this question of, what are these digital assets, rare Pepes? What are they backed by? What are they backed on? What is the token the art? Is the art the art? But in the very beginning, it was, okay, you minted it for 0.5 XCP. and you may have made hundreds or thousands or whatever, or one.
Yeah.
How much do you sell it for in XCP now? Okay, but there's also a Pepe Cash market. Okay, 2 years from now, okay, there's a PTC market. Okay, now I got OpenSea. There's an Ethereum market, and now it's like the bag market for liquidity. And there's always been a question of like, what are these worth versus all these different things? And I find that to be super cool. I find that to be
Yeah.
really, like it added liquidity for people that wanted to give Pepe's to the bag, and I'm really excited to see how that math kind of goes in the future, and I'm really excited for them to try to get series ones and some pretty good relics in there, because I think it will. I've already seen instant. I remember in the 2021, well, a lot of the Ethereum heads were coming through. There were people that own these like decentralized kind of wallets that are like investors, right? And like you
Mhm.
mentioned before, those government accredited investors, these people were just like friends that had a lot of Ethereum that wanted to invest in NFTs that they all thought were smart, that they would all agree on. And then they came in and they bought like a Rare Pepe from I forgot when it was some like 50 Ethereum or something like that. And they came in and bought some relics, like one of the Putin cards,
Yeah.
and they were I don't know what that organization was, but they were smart. And it's kind of what Bag has done now, but to then not private, it's a very public thing, and now
You
everyone
know,
can be a part of it.
one of the things that I thought was one of the most like crazy things that I witnessed I think it was last year, was there was this group that was trying to start this thing called Punks DAO, where they're like, yeah, you need to either donate a punk or the equivalent value in F in order to access our DAO, and the DAO would just like their proposal was essentially like, yeah, we're gonna have a bunch of punks, and then we'll invest in this other stuff. Like, it's like, one, there's no alpha, like they couldn't manage a portfolio like better than I could, and like the amount of irrational and crazy disrespectful management of capital, like in the space, like comparing something like that, where I saw, like, I joined that Discord and I saw the amount of people that were just like, here's 200F, and all these guys that are just aping in with these huge bags, where like this makes a lot more sense to me, again, like, because personally I view that, like, I still view punk I mean Pepe's is undervalued fundamentally, and I think they have a big, not just a big upside, but I think they have inherent value, even if they don't pump. Like, you know, Pepe's, for so many reasons are one of the dopest, assets in the crypto scene. So
Definitely the punk rock, or the what is it, the yeah, that's why I keep kind of relating it to certain historical movements, because it's kind of history, it
I
repeats
mean,
itself.
yeah,
And
it's not, again, it's the antithesis of this like VC style, like, hey, we're gonna like corner the market, and like, we've seen so many scams and like shady activity in the NFT scene, where people are like wash trading shit in order to like run up the price and all this other crazy nonsense, where, again, like, everything's pretty transparent on the in the Pepe scene for the OGs. Not to say
yeah,
that people don't try and do that on individual cards, but the market is too big, across. I mean, again, there's over 1,700 cards. I mean, a lot of these people, a lot of the holders and the big holders are like, they're well known, even if they're not doxed by their formal name, they're known, right? That, like, I don't know, it's a different, and again, the vibe goes back to the genesis and how these were created. So
yeah, and the beauty of this collection specifically is just because each artist is responsible for their distribution and how they're going to do
mhm.
it, and they can undercut themselves. And that's why a lot of people, like a lot of I learned this a lot of when the Ethereum collectors came into the Rare Pepe scene, is distribution. It's like, let's make sure the artist doesn't have a lot of the card. What is the artist type? Like, let's look at the price history. Let's look into like how they sell it, and then that's a huge risk factor for
Mhm.
somebody that wants to collect. And then yeah, you have the experiment of 1774 of them, and each of them have their own little experiment and their own little market. And yeah, and it's like,
It's funny though, because people approach it in different ways. Like, I guess I'm more of a collector, where like there's one of the cards that has like a terrible distribution, but I was just in love with and I bought anyway was one of Joe Looney's card, I'm trying to think of the name of it, but it's the guy with on um the guy on that like the infomercial where he's the doing the infomercial like where with the exercise machine and the has that
Oh,
TV in the
like
back. Yeah.
Billy Mays or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was amazing. I
I know
mean,
what you're talking about. I know which one.
yeah,
I can't remember the name.
I knew the distribution was terrible and I bought it anyway just because I was like I fell in love with the card, so
Yeah, yeah, I was getting, I think I called out Nims the other day because of Love is Pepe, because he has hundreds of thousands of it and they sell for like way too much money for that. But it's such a good card. I get so mad and frustrated. I'm like, please just burn them or distribute them or let me have some, please. And I don't know, that's the fun of, that's another aspect of Pepe is that, a lot of people might see it as worthless, but you and I know, after talking with a lot of these people that there are people here that will buy you. If you go to the WTH auctions and you put your card up for no reserve, it's not going to be $0. I'll tell you that. Somebody's going to be in there ready to get it. They're ready to get it under floor, ready to up their collection. And it's dude, it's really cool to see that, like I said, coming from a collector, like how I started, it solves so many problems that if you would go out and try to collect and sell on eBay for anything from old, baseball cards to, you're going to run into so many issues that you do not get in the NFT world. You don't
you
get
know we
those issues.
another great point is we had I saw on Twitter someone pointed out this video and that like in a link to these Reddit threads where there's this huge scandal in the Pokemon
Oh, I saw
physical
that.
yeah, that physical card scene where like it sounded like some of the guys at the Japanese print shop were basically hoarding all these rare holo cards, which are I guess the most choice of the Pokemon cards, and they got busted trying to like offload boxes of the rarest cards to a local card shop. I mean,
Oh,
really, it
someone should
does.
mint that. Someone should mint that, and then just like have
They
a
should, yeah.
bunch of Nakamoto stacked up in there, like some like Ric Flairs and like all the like super like trying to sneak out in hoods and oh, that'd be so funny. Someone mint it, please. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's amazing. You're right. I mean, this solves that problem. Like you said, there's over time too, I think the other thing that happens is, the nerds that like, where they have the ability to, like when I can, I'll pick up a card or two that I don't have. I mean, hey, if this catches on, if we're not the only group that appreciates this over time, then these cards are going to become more and more scarce as they get distributed over the next 5 or 10 years. And again, I have to think that see it getting more like, even if we only go up and turn collectors by like 2 or 3 times, like a lot of these cards that you would think are 100 supply are only really like actually 30 in circulation or 50 in circulation, or even a hundred supply card with all of them in circulation. That's 100 supply in the entire world. So,
Uh,
like push comes to shove it, like there's not very much supply in case like demand comes in. It'll get disorderly and really quickly.
yeah, I was looking at that one to what was it the other day was the John Lennon one, Pepe
Yeah, yeah.
Lennon,
The
and
Sky
that one
Pepe.
is yeah, I think there's like it's a 1 out of 40 right now ish. I
No,
think one out of
the
40 or
Sky Pepe got burned down to a 10.
oh really? I don't know about the Sky one, but the Pepe Lennon I was looking
Oh,
at
okay.
is exactly the
It's another
situation.
linen one. The Sky Pepe is a
Oh,
linen.
oh, it's the one that the Lucy in the Sky with Diamond ones or whatever. Or is it the one he's like? I think I know what you're talking about. Maybe I didn't look it up.
Okay. Yeah,
Maybe
but
I'm thinking. Oh, I see
yeah,
it.
but
No, I see what you're talking about now. I was thinking about something different. It's the Imagine one. Okay. Wow, it did get burned. I'm seeing that now. How cool is that? You just described something to me. I boom, a click, bam. Oh, it is. That's the issuance. It's no Pokemon, nonsense. Oh, look, I can see I can click and see all the information of it being burned. And I saw someone on Twitter the other day that was like, oh, we just made a new system of telling when the asset changes the description of this and that, and some guy commented like, "Yo, Counterparty has that. It's just the tab called issuances." and uh, and I was like, "Wow, like anyway." There's so many functions that are kind of slept on, and just It's cool. But anyway, Pepe Lennon, it's like exactly what you said. It's really, really, and I don't think a lot of people can understand certain price ranges for things. There's so many questions when you come into a Rare Pepe. You're like, why is this worth so much money and this not? Is it the art? Is it the token? And then everyone's like, I don't know. It's something. It just do you want it or not?
I mean, and again, like we're it, and again, if we're assuming that there's greater adoption, which there's no guarantee, right? So, but assuming there is, like some of these memes, like for me, I went crazy when I like was obsessed with getting a zero wing Pepe until I finally got one. Like went bonkers for like 2 months until like I hustled nonstop until I was able to pull that off. That's one of my
Wow, that's an
favorite
achievement. That's
cards.
a hard. I don't have that. That's a hard card to get. That's crazy.
Man,
One
I
does
like
one does not simply acquire a zero wing Pepe.
like one of the reasons I went bonkers for that is that I remember as a kid that was like one of the first like big internet memes that I was exposed to that actually like blew up. So um I don't know, it meant a lot for me. And so but yeah, I mean again, that's a 50 supply card. Are there 50 nerds out there who are like gonna want that card? Well, obviously, because already the price is significant. So I don't know. I think some stuff is going to get crazy. And I wrote an article like it's been like maybe a year or two ago, but I like if things play out, I think they will. Like I think things like the Nakamoto card are going to get like they're going to set records. Like I could see the Nakamoto going for like 100 or $250 million. I mean, why
Oh,
not?
oh my God. It's the Nakamoto card has always been out of reach for me. I swear to God, it's gonna be that case in the future. And we're gonna be 25, 30 years down the line and be like, I'm really gonna go for it now. Oh crap, price is 5 million ETH floor. Like, God damn it. Like, man, it's always been out of reach. Even when I was in the early days, it was hard to get a Nakamoto. It was hard to get anything under 1 out of 50 series one. I mean, the Dark Pill Pepe,
Oh God, yeah,
oh my God. I mean, there's the whole legend of, Need Money 90 with he has a whole series one set. And
yeah.
the story goes, the last cycle, some guy came to him and said, I'll buy the full series. Like he wanted to buy only one Pepe for like $2 million. And Need Money said, no, I will sell the whole series one set and I'll sell it to a museum. And that was that's the word on the street is what I've heard. And maybe, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but he was, he would talk about a collector. That guy was there before everyone else. He did the hard work in the early days to secure some of the hardest cards you could get. And
And
he,
he still is a admin at the Rare Pepe Traders Discord. I mean, it's funny. I didn't even know who he was until I had already started collecting Pepes, and then I came across his name, and like it I wasn't searching for his name, but I was searching for something else, and I saw his handle in this old I think it was a Bitcoin talk thread on for Monero.
no
Or
way.
yeah, or
That's
maybe it was a
ancient,
Monero. Yeah,
ancient.
yeah. I mean, well, turns out that he was like pretty big in the Monero scene. I don't know if it was Bitcoin Talk thread or if it was another like Monero specific forum, but yeah, apparently he was like super big in the Monero scene too, which I always thought was super cool. I was really surprised the privacy coins didn't like never really got any traction.
Yeah, I don't
But
know.
yeah, yeah, to your point though, I mean, like you know, like that, a complete series one set or even a partial series one set is a grail. And I even think some of these higher supply series one cards are like I think they're crazy opportunities now, considering how I think Hair Pepe is so iconic as an example that it's one of the most instantly recognizable cards in the directory, and it's a series one, and it's still affordable for regular people. I mean, I think that has a ton of potential.
I think slept on TLC Pepe. I mean, I found
Oh
out the
yeah.
story about her, and that I
Mhm.
didn't realize how big of an influence she was to the community. and you know, first the people were looking up first. I mean, like Rare Pepe SS, first sports, you know,
Yeah.
NFT. That like the first women in the NFT would be Pepe Nation, I think. There was, you know, all these first, you know, Pepe Ball, the little
Yeah.
game, you know,
Shro Pepe.
uh,
Shro
I,
Pepe is amazing.
you know, I you saw you did an interview with the artist of Shro, and I was enamored when I found out. I was just like filled with such awe coming from, you know, editing pictures, that he had figured out how to code something like that into an image, let alone put it onto a Rare Pepe. And I
Blew
also
me
it's super cool to look into quantum, you know, mechanics. So
Yeah,
it's
it
just a
blew me away
symbolic
that
art.
he pulled that off. And I don't know if did you see that asset that he created for he he embedded the hash of it in the Bitcoin blockchain back in 2015 that he minted recently on Ethereum. The what was he called it? I'm terrible with names right now, but it was like let's share some hash or something like that.
Mhm.
But I mean,
That's funny.
yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Like he minted that, and I shared it out on Twitter. I was able to mint a couple of those really cheap, and I think there's less than 100 of those created. And I think that's like both as Shro Pepe and that being neat, like the first, I think the first example of that technique being demonstrated. I don't know. I like
I didn't even know the technique existed, let alone you doing it on the blockchain. I didn't know that you could have the image load. If people don't know, I mean, see, look at the last episode of Zero G's podcast. I mean, Shro Pepe loads differently whether or not you're loading on a specific way that the computer is reading the JPEG information, if I'm getting this right.
yeah,
And
depending on which program you're using to render the file, like if
mhm.
you're like two different browsers can use a different rendering engine and it can display render the same file in a completely different image. It's crazy.
And then the joke to it was that it was like a Schrodinger's equation type thing where the cat is dead or it's not dead, you know, bringing back to, you know, historical sciences and physics and such or whatever,
Well,
quantum
I mean, and
physics.
and I had even more appreciate like I was kind of obsessed with that Shro Pepe once I figured out once I read an article about like his innovation, but like I have even more appreciation for it after I spoke to him and like he's like he's not like a one trick pony. He has like a really wide range of like the art that he's produced and was really early in like and being kind of crypto focused and having like these themes and experiments. Like, did you see that Lego wall he created?
I didn't know.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah, if you pull it up, I put the photos in the video. He created for this school. He created this long wall that was kind of like a it's kind of like a an analogy or metaphor for like going through life, which I thought was very appropriate for kids. And just but kind of in like this in like a pixelated like 8-bit style video game theme, you know.
Mhm.
And but even back then he had as kind of an Easter egg, he had embedded like a QR code for a Bitcoin address that he had too. So pretty
That's
cool. I mean,
common.
he's just kind of like he's a very like he's one of the like there's a ton of people like like yourself or myself, which are kind of like amateurs in the arts, but he's like a true artist that has a huge breadth of work and a tremendous skill that so like he's a professional artist. So I his skill, I mean, he has a his stuff is I mean he has other professional like he has these other like works that have been commissioned at throughout Europe that I think are pretty fascinating. So I don't know.
You know
It's
what's you know
interesting that just
it's
another example of tremendous people that were involved in the project back then.
yeah, when I got to meet Pepe Nardo in NYC, and we were talking. So we go up, and I stole a bunch of beers, and but I met him when I was doing that, and we started getting to know his background a little bit. And he told me that, I mean, he was well versed in the like traditional arts and
Okay.
like way into art history, and he had already done commission works for his that's what he described to us, and he basically told us the moment he got into fakes, the moment he got into the Pepe world and the NFT world, his works were selling for much more, and people
Mhm.
were like recognizing him more and appreciating certain things, and like he was happy to be a part of the community. It was so cool to see people like that, like new people that come in that have just so much talent and like give, like just inspire people, and like just for no other reason than to just to do it. And there's the whole monetary side of it. Yeah, you want to sell your art, but you know, you're some of the most, I'm telling you the truth, I didn't make, I didn't get rich off of Breitbart Pep. I made most of the artists that came in Rare Pepe, a lot of commons, have wait one or two cards and they mess around with it and they get their name in there, and that's the experiment. And it's just so cool though to have those people that come in and like inspire you. I mean, there's so many aspects of that, like Pepe Angelo, even pre that in the Rare Pepe days where she would come
Yeah.
into the chat. Dude, her story is insane. I hope you interview her one day, because that's a whole inspiration in itself. I remember she would come into the chat while we were buying and selling like, hundreds of dollars of these digital artifacts. And she's like, look at these Pepes I painted, aren't they super awesome? I literally, she DM'd me and she's like, you can make whatever you want. Like, give me, I could do the Last Supper or whatever. I can make whatever scene and I'll paint it just, and I'll sell it to you for like on the dot, like pretty cheap. It was like $400. Do you understand that her stuff goes for 20, 15, 20,000 now? And I don't get a pick art. All right, she was like in the scene, like out there hustling, like, and just an artist that was so talented. And now she's on her own level. I mean, she's doesn't even need any
I've
of us
seen her.
anymore.
I've seen her work, and it's really incredible. I mean, it's amazing that she's been able to, and yeah, credit to her for hustling and and um, Pep Bernardo too. I mean, he's created like really iconic pieces that I think, like when you think about fake rares, it's up there. I mean, like for me, there's a few pieces that like, when we were talking about the genesis of fake rares when Skrilla was getting it off the ground, like there were like I missed out on the fake ASF drop, but I was there in the series one, and I remember like some of the first cards, they were just memeing on old cards, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. But for me, a turning point was when Bloomer was dropped by Art Bat. I mean,
So
that's
good, so good. I,
incredible. It's a I think that is a pivotal card in the entire directory, and but also it's her work is incredible too. She has a ton of other animated pieces that she's dropped. She's an incredible artist, but in a similar vein, like I saw some of I was too broke to buy them at the time, but I saw some of Pepinardo's earlier pieces that he dropped, which are incredible.
dude, the
Um,
physicals I saw too are just
oh,
very
I,
really
I feel
well done.
really lucky though. I have been able to get like the fake science and
I
the
got one
cat.
too. I got one
Oh
too.
yeah,
I had to. It was so good.
yeah.
I was the
Man,
frog in the chamber.
I think one of the best things is that one of the OG scientists got the physical for that. I mean, I think that's so amazing that it worked out that way. So anyway, yeah, fake fake Genesis, fake science. I mean, fake science to me is so many of his pieces they're instantly recognizable. He's really stepped up the game, for the he's an incredible artist, and he's brought a lot to the scene. So I mean, hats off for him. I'm really happy for his success. We have so many like incredible artists, like not just again, I know, like Pepe Art gets a lot of life. There's so many incredible artists. I wish I had enough, cash to collect them all. But I mean, there's so many people that are coming up with these all sorts of different styles. So, same thing for the on the OG scene too. So
Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to enjoy the space with everybody. And again, just shout out to shout out Ad Modem. Like coming again. I just want to shout out because he helped me with Pepe Neal too. I forgot to mention that. He did the face for that, and there's so much
okay,
collaboration happening. Like look at how many collaborative arts that have already happened in fakes. I mean, with the ghost
yeah,
face ones, the like get artists together. Get like you can share, like mint a supply, lock it, and share the issuance. There's so many avenues for things to be built upon. And it's just a great space to be in. It's cool. And
Yeah, I mean, before I let you go, is there, like, we've talked about like your, you know, all the work that you've participated in and have created. I mean, is there any, like, you have any thoughts about, like, right now as we're recording this, this is in middle of 2023 in the, and kind of a pretty deep in the bear.
oh
Like, do
yeah.
you have any thoughts about where either counterparty or crypto or the scene are going in the future, what you're looking forward to?
I mean, there's good news and there's bad news on what I guess I'm wrestling with that dualism on the future. And the bad news is, like, it scares me, like kind of the Jason Lowry type example of, I think a lot of people that are really threatened by Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, decentralized finance, decentralized token issuances, we're going to get mad about it, and we're probably going to see that happen, probably very soon or in the next couple of years. But on the flip side of that, the only way to, like, kind of fight it is just to engage in having fun with, like, of everything we've already talked about, in my opinion. And I mean, your spirit alone is going to change the like I said, dude, it's crazy to me. Like the story I mentioned with Emblematics, where I
Yeah.
was the one that gifted him a first card. I think that's what, if you're a new collector or a new, like a new person, just like post the Addy, like we'll send you something, we'll show you, like we'll give you a card that's a lower issuance that we have some of, like show you what it's like, the place, like the whole scene is about. And that can inspire some crazy artists to show up, some crazy influential people. And I think the good news is, in the future, you're only going to get people that are really, like, want to help and want to be, try something new, be a part of the community, and put the work into it. I mean, come home from your day job and just melt your eyes on X-Chain and minting and looking and researching, and making tools. Like, you just sent me a tool of, like, back in the day, we'd be like, oh, you want to trade my wallet to your wallet? You just sent me a tool someone made of, like, let's just insta do that, where it shows cards that we don't have so we could trade multiples we don't have, and there's our list. You know how long it was to do an OTC trade in the years before? I mean, it's what I hope for is there's going to be just an easy little button. This is what the world needs, or whatever. Is an easy, simple button I can press and it buys me Rare Pepe or whatever. But I don't know. I'm excited for the future, and I'm excited for just like even the random stuff we talk about with video games, and the future I hope to be a part of, where we can, I don't know, man. The very crazier things have happened in the past, I will say, than the expansion of. I mean, oh, I'm rambling, but the Rare Pepe game. I mean, some people OGs know this, but there was a game that would use the cards, and it'd be it was supposed to be a trading card game with the Rare Pepes. And I want to see integrations with counterparty and blockchain assets, and people, like, using that in gaming in the future, running companies, like deploying shares with assets on counterparty or something similar. It doesn't have to be counterparty. It's just something that, when I experienced it and I saw that we already do have something that works, and it works really well, and it's pretty sturdy, and it's been working for years, and there's a lot of people that can teach you how to do many aspects of it. I think the future is going to be really fun, and something to really engage in and be a part of. So
I I totally agree. I think and hats off to Emblematics. He's an incredible artist too. I mean, yeah,
100%.
tremendous skill. But um, I agree. I think one thing I think is a no-brainer that I would be like really astounded if we didn't see is not just the gaming integration we talked about, but like the metaverses in the future. So I used to think that kind of like these centralized metaverses would be the ones to take off first. But I had some conversations recently where I think some of these smaller scale ones are going to take off, or be kind of the cornerstone, at least initially. And I would be astounded if we don't see integrations um, where allow integration for counterparty and Ethereum, to where you can have your prove asset ownership. I mean, it's such a slam dunk. I mean,
It's
if you
so
are going
easy.
to
You
have,
just sign a transaction. You're like, boom, proved it. I don't have to give anybody anything. You know what I'm saying?
oh,
I've signed the hash in the It's so easy. It's already, the
and
building blocks are there.
and again, it's like again, imagine being able to flex having a ninja suit or a Nakamoto for anyone anyone who has any exposure to our scene, that's the biggest flex that you can have. And I think that the more that we keep that alive, and the more that these scenes are like, even if the scene stays small, that's still going to be an enormous flex within our community. So even if we don't go mainstream, I still think that is, and we have a ton of brilliant people that do, tremendous amount of technical work. I think that's going to happen, and I think it would it'd be a no-brainer where we'll see these integrations for Ethereum and Counterparty and Doge Party, where you'll be able to again, prove who you are, prove your wallet addresses, and then display your art and your private metaverse world that you create. I don't know. I think it's going to be super cool.
Yeah, I think I have a plan now. I'm gonna go. Hear me out. I'm gonna get an op and Counter-Strike, put a sticker on it, right? It's my sticker in my spot. Okay. And then I'm gonna put it in an emblem vault, right? and mint it on Counterparty, put it in an emblem vault, then fractionalize it. No, I'm kidding. But I'm
No,
excited
what we're
for the
going to do
future.
is we're going to have a hostile takeover of Valve, and
Yeah.
then put the ownership of Valve into an emblem vault, and then fractionalize it.
And then lock the token, and then moon soon. Yeah, I know. Hey, it's been great talking to you, ZRG. I'm glad
Yeah,
we could ramble on together about all this stuff.
yeah, it's been a real pleasure. I appreciate you taking the time out to chat with me today. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, dude. Having a blast. I'm excited for the future.